Good morning, everyone. I'll call this Ag Service Board meeting July 3rd to order. The meetings are recorded and may be posted on official Wheatland County social media channels. Agriculture Service Board is conducting this meeting in person and via conference call in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, Section 199. Council Chambers is open for public attendance in person while continuing to use the current telecommuting process in place. So we have two members joining remotely. Member Bigger, are you there?
Yes, I am.
And Member Kester.
I'm here.
Excellent. All right.
This call is being recorded.
We have an agenda before us. Are there any additions or modifications to the agenda? Okay, yes, we do have one extra piece of correspondence. Shanna, would that have been sent out to Member Kester? And okay. Okay, so Donna and Glenn, we have an extra piece of correspondence that we were adding to the agenda. And Shanna's just going to email that to you right now so that you have it.
Thank you.
Pardon? Yes, it'll just go under correspondence. So there's no real change to the agenda. If I could get a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Member Eichert. We have to vote individually because we have two members remotely joining. So Member Bigger, are you in favor?
In favor?
Member Kester?
In favor.
Member Eichert?
In favor.
Member Link?
In favor.
Member Greyer?
In favor.
Member Larson?
In favor.
Member Wilson?
In favor.
Member DeSmet? That's carried. Next on our agenda is the adoption of the minutes from April 3rd, 2024. Any errors or omissions? If not, a motion to approve as presented. Member Link? Thank you very much. Member Bigger? I'll call the question.
In favor?
Sorry. Member Kester?
In favor.
Member Eichert?
In favor.
Member Link?
In favor.
Member Greer?
In favor.
Member Larson?
In favor.
Member Wilson?
In favor.
Member DeSmet? And I'm in favor. That's carried. All right. We have a presentation. First off, we have Darcy Allen from the Farmers and Property Rights Advocate Office. Welcome, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So where's everybody looking? At me? Is it? All the eyes are looking at me. There's got to be, hopefully there's a screen behind me. Yeah, so thanks for having the Farmers Advocates Office out today. 15-20 minutes to try to cover off everything that's happening in the energy utilities and policy side of things is impossible. So I'll just stick to it. A couple themes that I want to bring to your attention. More than anything is so that you can kind of follow back up and review some of the AUC proceedings and some of the information that has recently transpired through the AUC inquiry. So that's dealing with all of the renewable energy side of things. So without further ado, because there's lots to go through, for those of you that aren't familiar with the Farmers Advocates Office, I need to point out as a disclaimer right off the get-go that the Farmers Advocates Office is neither supportive of nor are we opposed to any renewable energy development or any of the Government of Alberta pilot projects. So our job really is just to try to create that value for our rural stakeholders and our farmers and ranchers, and empowering them through awareness on key issues, and really looking at that advocacy role where we're working with agencies and government departments kind of behind the scenes on any legislation or regulatory development that can tend to intersect with the agricultural community. So I tell folks that if you're starting to feel like this little guy with his hair on fire and you're not really sure which way to go or who to call or what to do, give us a shout and we'll try to help put things in perspective for you. So a little bit of an update regarding the renewable energy file. As you may have heard or maybe even participated in, on August of last year, the Government of Alberta announced a pause on the approval of all renewable energy generation projects and to provide time for the Alberta Utilities Commission to hold a public inquiry on competing interests and the factors raised by the renewable energy generation project applications. So more specifically, the government enacted the Generation Approvals Pause Regulation, which prevented the AUC from actually approving any renewable power plant projects over 1 megawatts. And that was in effect until March of this year. So there are some other specifics around what was encompassed by that pause. The government also ordered the AUC to host an inquiry to gather evidence about a number of things about the development of power plants on specific types of agricultural land or environmental land, the impacts of power plants on pristine viewscapes and other landscapes, the development of reclamation security, the development of power plants potentially on crown land, and the impact of growth of renewables on Alberta's generation supply mix and the electricity supply availability. Then through a bulletin that they released, 2305, they introduced some new information interim requirements relating to agricultural land, viewscapes, reclamation security, land use planning, and that encompassed all of the wind and solar, thermal, hydroelectric, and other power plants. So as of September of last year, applicants are supposed to meet these interim requirements under Rule 7. And they're supposed to be using the current version of the Agricultural Regions of Alberta Soil Inventory Database and the Land Suitability Rating System tables to describe the impacts to soil quality, quantity, hydrology, and how each can be effectively mitigated during any of the construction and operation and reclamation. And they also have to provide information on all the earthworks now. So more detailed information on the stripping and the grading and the soil conservation approaches, anything that's planned for the development, including information on the methodology on how to anchor the structures for any of the development. So that's like whether it's going to be screw piles or concrete foundations or footings or what have you. For the municipal land use side of things, they're required to confirm whether their proposed developments now comply with the applicable municipal planning documents. So including any of the development plans, area structure plans, any of the land use bylaws or any other bylaws, and to provide a justification for any non-compliance to any of the municipal guidelines. They also have to describe how they engaged with potentially affected municipalities to modify the proposed power plant or to mitigate any of the potential adverse impacts prior to filing the application. With the viewscapes, they have to list any of the pristine viewscapes on which the project's proposed and describe any mitigation measures available to minimize those impacts on the project from any of the pristine viewscape concerns. Reclamation security, they have to describe the reclamation security program for the proposed power plant, including any of the details on the standard as to which the project site will be reclaimed and decommissioned, and how that reclamation security will be calculated, the frequency on how often they're going to calculate that security, when the reclamation security is to be drawn upon, if needed, and what form the reclamation security is to take. So whether that's an irrevocable letter of credit or a cash bond or an insurance provision or some other mechanisms that's agreeable to the landowner, and that who the security beneficiaries are, and how the beneficiary can access that security if there's any constraints or concerns at a later date. As rest is the Module A, there's some very, very good information as part of the expert reports that the AUC commissioned as part of their inquiry. So the expert reports are very detailed, very, very good information, even in general, not just necessarily specific to the renewable energy side. But they had experts weigh in on recommendations for proposed process to identify and assign value to all agricultural land in Alberta, recommendations for mitigating impacts of any of the development on agricultural land, literature reviews on potential impacts of development on viewscapes, closure standards for generation sites, end-of-life security recommendations, and recommendations for implementing mandatory security requirements for power plants as part of the regulatory review process. So all of the reports that they commissioned are not final or binding, but they were considered by the AUC along with any of the other stakeholder feedback as part of the overall inquiry on the recommendations to government. So arising out of that inquiry is the Government of Alberta announced plans to implement new policy and regulatory changes for future renewable generation projects. So these changes were announced by the Minister of Affordability and Utilities just a day ahead of the end of the 7-month moratorium, confirming that the moratorium was over and that the pause on AUC approvals for new generation projects would now continue. And then they announced some of the policy and regulatory changes that can really just be summarized as taking an agricultural first approach to evaluate the best use of agricultural lands by prohibiting development on Class 1 and Class 2 lands unless it can be demonstrated that the project can coexist with crops and or livestock. The land classifications determined under the National Land Suitability Rating System, and the AUC proposal will require proponents to provide field soil verification earlier than what the current framework requires. In addition, they intend to establish more tools to protect the availability of native grasslands, irrigable lands, and other productive lands. With the reclamation security, developers must now demonstrate sufficient capital for reclamation costs through the bonds or other security features. And subject to the AUC approval, these will either be provided directly to government now or negotiated directly with landowners. And the amount of the security required is going to be determined by the Minister of Environment Protected Areas in consultation with the Ministry of Affordability and Utilities, and they should announce some of those new guidelines by the end of 2024. So the protected areas, Alberta intends to designate certain areas as pristine viewscapes or otherwise protected lands and implement a 35-kilometer buffer around those pristine sites. So where there's no wind projects could be permitted within that buffer zone, and other developments may be subject to any other visual impact assessments. Furthermore, the AUC has proposed enhancing the existing visual impact assessment requirements to provide a more structured methodology on how the developers are supposed to approach that. With the Crown land development, development of renewable energy projects on Crown lands could be a possibility on a case-by-case basis. The province intends to further engage with stakeholders, including impacted Indigenous parties, in a meaningful consultation process and to develop a policy framework for Crown land, and any resulting legislative policy changes are expected to be somewhere in that late 2025. And then with the transmission regulation, that is still underway. Engagement is happening for proposed changes to the transmission regulations, and Alberta intends to, release any of those changes impacting transmission cost allocations for renewable projects. But it's underscored that the changes will not be applied retroactively. As part of further coming out of the inquiry, there's now more clarity to the related participatory rights of municipalities. So the concerns are addressed in the new framework such that municipalities now have automatic right to participate in the AUC hearings and request cost recovery for their participation. The AUC will also conduct proceedings or other processes to consider appropriate setbacks for renewable infrastructure from neighboring residences and other important infrastructure. In addition, the AUC will develop rules for mandatory site visits for proposed renewable generation projects. So stay tuned, because there's a little bit more coming out of that in the future. The visual impact assessments, as part of protecting residential landowners and Alberta's viewscapes, they'll be required to enhance the existing visual impact assessments, including the potential for even site visits in that regard too. So what's next is the interim Rule 7 requirements will remain in effect. And that's part of some further consultation and proceedings to see if they should be modified, or deleted, or just accepted carte blanche. For any of the applications that had been submitted during the pause, any further processes may be required depending on the circumstances of the application and the sufficiency of the information that was provided during the pause. So a couple of key decisions that I want to just kind of highlight for municipalities and service boards. The Foothills Solar Projects and the Proteus Alberta Solar Project. It just came out this week, the last one. So these are important decisions because there's a lot of verbiage in these two decisions that the AUC has been trying to communicate to municipalities. And more specifically, what the Commission said in both instances, it's that it's helpful to the Commission when municipalities appear before it to provide additional context into the regional lens through which its planning instruments were enacted. This provides the Commission with the insight into the public processes that contributed to the instruments and the local concerns or issues that are specifically reflected in the relevant planning instruments. So really, to paraphrase, the AUC is trying to tell everybody that they can't assume that there's no issues or concerns, or that there's no other alternatives or options, or any requested conditions that they can consider, unless the municipality provides them with that information. And really it's only to help them to make a better decision. They also made reference to some other key courts of appeal decisions and previous AUC decisions, specifically the Borgel versus Paint Earth. That was a subdivision and development appeal board, Alberta Court of Appeal. At paragraph 22 in that decision, they said the purpose of section 619, because I know that's always been a concern for some municipalities, of section 619 and 620 in the Municipal Government Act. 619 is to reduce the regulatory burden and increase administrative efficiency and consistency. 619 achieves this by granting paramountcy to the decision of certain provincial bodies to ensure projects are not blocked at the municipal level for issues already considered and approved at the provincial level. 619 and 620 do not displace a municipality's planning and development decision-making authority. Rather, those sections provide that Alberta municipalities must exercise that authority in a way that's consistent with AUC licenses, permits, and approvals, and other authorizations. 619 and 620 are only engaged when it's necessary to resolve conflicts between the Commission decisions and municipal planning instruments. If there's no conflict, both can effectively govern the planning and development process. They also reference the Municipal Government Act and the Hydroelectricity Act, which encourages the economic and orderly development of Alberta's landscape. But what distinguishes the public interest mandates is the lens in which each is viewed: a focused regional and local perspective for municipalities and a broader provincial perspective for the AUC. So the Commission further stated that it recognizes municipalities are the subject matter experts on land use in their own jurisdiction. However, the Commission's decisions does not serve to replace the MD's authority or prevent the MD from evaluating the project in accordance with its municipal requirements. The only caveat to this is that the MD may not make findings or render a decision which frustrates what the Commission has already determined. So those two decisions, those are just some excerpts out of some of the information that the AUC's provided, but you have to almost read them in entirety to really get a good understanding as to what they're trying to advise. And just kind of to wrap up, just a little information on the site reduction reclamation certificate project. For those that aren't aware of it, this is really, as an overview, this is just a pilot that allows licensees to apply for a reclamation certificate on the unused portion of a well site that meets equivalent land use capability, even though the well and a portion of the well site remains active. So to date, our office has only received just a handful of inquiries. We were involved in supporting the development and the creation of these documents and the messaging and the pertinent information to depart to landowners. The AER's public notice of application web portal and the AER's one-stop application query tool are the only mechanisms that I'm aware of to acquire any publicly available data on the project and review any of the reclamation certificate applications. As of Wednesday of last week, the AER advised me that they have received 0 applications, so there has been nothing submitted to them as of yet. But you have to kind of also anticipate that because of the detailed site assessments and the work that's required on site, that you probably might not expect to see anything until late July, August, or even into September. So it's still kind of early in the process where they haven't been receiving anything. So as such, there's really no way or no how or no way to determine if any landowners have agreed to participate. So we'll have to see when the applications start coming in. We frequently provide clients with referrals to other surface rights groups, synergy groups, and other government and regulatory bodies for support. So if there's an entity out there, if it's a surface rights group or an association or anything, you can help us to help you by providing an avenue for us to refer them to. So whether it's a website or a Facebook page or a contact list, if you can get that stuff to us, or if we're aware of it, then yeah, if there's stakeholders and such that are looking for other non-government supports or anything like that, we can for sure review them or refer them over. As for the pilot project infographic that WARS has developed for farmers, we can share this document informally, and I have already. However, I don't think it's something that would be appropriate to post to the Government of Alberta website. But there again, if you can provide us with a redirect to your sites or to your information, then it's just a matter of providing information to landowners. Okay. We're pretty easy to find. 310 Farm, Ag Info Center, quick internet search. You can follow up with me directly. And with that, I will take any easy questions.
Thank you. That was excellent. Any questions? You should just turn on your microphone so they can hear you on the phone.
I had submitted some questions to Darcy, and I think that he has covered them all.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only other thing is we're just in the process of developing a website, so we'll get that to you as quickly as we can.
Perfect. Yeah, because there's a lot of very valuable information in local groups, right? That is applicable to local circumstances and local conditions, whether it's rates or best practices or that kind of real general community support. So yeah, I mean, if you can get us that information, for sure, we have no problem in no hesitation in forwarding it on. So thank you.
I'm not as active in the Surface Rights Society as Sandra, so can you just tell me what the benefit is to a landowner to take part in the site reduction certification, reclamation program?
Good question. Thank you, Chair. The benefit to the landowner is really to recover more or re-recover those agricultural lands that had been taking or had been part of the taking. It's kind of a hit and miss where you have a situation where the landowner was potentially even previously farming that area. So unless it was a site that was an area that wasn't under productive agriculture, that would be, to me, one of the benefits, or only benefit that I can think of right off the top of my head, is just to have greater land use, greater area of land use.
Okay, thanks.
Member Greer, a question just regarding the letters shown. Is it just more of a clarity question? Does it have to be mutually agreed upon from the landowner and the oil company, or can it be done by one party or influenced by one party?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair to you, the consent is required from the landowner. So the activity cannot be undertaken unilaterally. So they must gain consent from the landowner to go.
Thank you.
I think one of our issues to begin with was this project was tried before, years ago, and it was unsuccessful. And we're just worried that when they do go in to service a well, they're still going to use the whole amount of acreage that they had before. So.
Yeah, thank you. That has been a concern that has been raised amongst many people. So it could create the potential for trespass, right? But when you take a pilot project of 18 months and you don't have any activity on that site within 18 months, you're not going to have any instances of trespass. Right? So it's going to be over the longer term, from my view, where you would have instances of trespass, potentially. And that's with any service providers or the operations themselves or other contractors or something that may not be familiar with, a reduced site. So how industry plans on communicating that this is, you're entering a reduced site and it's not the same as, many of the others in the area, could be a concern. It has been raised.
Sorry, we've got member Link and then member Larson.
Just a clarification. So my understanding was that while the pilot would require landowner consent, there is an anticipation that if the pilot were reviewed and analyzed by Alberta Environment and Protected Areas and they deemed that the pilot had gone well, that they could instate some kind of program that would allow industry to reclaim without landowner consent.
I have not heard that. That is a concern that has been raised about how the evaluation will be conducted and then what potential future requirements might be. That may be an outcome, but it's not something that I've heard that is proposed.
And then just for the board's awareness as well, wearing another hat, we had some engagement with Alberta Environment on this pilot. And one thing that they did indicate is they're not collecting any data on who is not, like who's been approached, but deciding not to participate. And so you could get very skewed metrics in terms of if industry presents, we have these 100 landowners who have voluntarily participated, but they're leaving it up to industry to report on concerns that are conveyed by landowners who decide not to participate. And so I don't think that's a strong pilot when you're leaving that in industry's hands, where there could be transparency with data, but there could be sort of a skew in terms of what gets reported to Alberta Environment. The other concern that I have with this is, and I'm trying to think of a more diplomatic term, but basically cherry picking, and they're reclaiming basically your, conducting your easiest reclamation and then leaving essentially your highest hazard installations and not choosing to reclaim that. And my concern is long term, we'll see the lease payments be eroded, obviously, for the surface rights, but then also data on reclamation that is not necessarily representative of the remaining risk and the remaining impact to agriculture. And so I would far rather see full sites being reclaimed, especially where those high hazard and more impactful installations are, rather than the industry being able to sort of cherry pick and reduce their liabilities and their expenses and leave those in place. So I have some significant concerns with this. My concern is that I really appreciate the work that WARS is doing to raise awareness around this, and there's many other stakeholder groups and kind of grassroots organizations working on this, but we really need to raise awareness with landowners and with agricultural producers about potential risks. And I will defend landowner rights. And that was a good point. They would be increasing agricultural land in operation, which is good, but you just want that decision made with eyes wide open and fully understanding the potential consequences of that. An informed consent. And my concern with industry leading the pilot as well is that informed consent may not, all of the potential consequences may not be presented as part of that consent. And so I think it's critical where we have grassroots organizations like WARS, or if our ASB can do something. I'm very grateful for all of the work that your office does in terms of raising awareness with our agricultural producers and being a resource for them. We've talked about this before. Our farmers are hardworking, they're humble, they don't have time to be digging into, appeal decisions and reading those things, and nor should they. They work hard to feed us and to feed the world. And so I'm grateful for groups that are assisting our agricultural producers and understanding those, and for our ASB and our agricultural services team as well, for all of the work that's done for those. So thank you to the Farmers Advocate Office as well for all the work that you do. We genuinely appreciate it.
Thank you. And I think that really underscores the importance of letting environment protected areas and Alberta Energy Regulator know of your interest and intent to participate in the development of any review or any assessment or anything after the fact. So I think that's important to respond back to those email addresses that are listed on the bottom of all of the interim directive and the landowner stuff, just to indicate your willingness to participate in further proceedings or further work that the government may undertake to look at the developing the review and assessment process. Thank you.
So just one, this is more related to what Sandra had mentioned. So just pass it along. One of the trespasses that she's talking about is, some companies are worse at this than others, but they have wells that are not productive and they don't want them to go onto the abandoned list. So they want to reduce the footprint. Then they want to come in and swab the well so they can produce a cube of fluid and say it's a productive well. So that's probably the most obvious one where you'll get into it. You'll get the site reduced, then you'll get a trespass when the swab unit comes in.
Yeah, appreciate that comment. That has been raised many, many times. And that's why we also underscore the importance of ensuring that industry is aware that they must be able to conduct all of their operations, whether it's service work or daily operations, and further abandonment and reclamation and decommissioning within that reduced area. So that was a very important consideration, that it wasn't just for operations. It was for all activities going forward. Thank you.
Any questions from Donna or Glenn? Nope. Sounds like we're good.
Well, thank you very much again, Chair, for inviting us. We're always open to future opportunities as well. If there's something else comes up that you would like our perspective on, don't hesitate to reach out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We appreciate your rural perspective.
Thank you, members.
Yeah. We'll just take a couple minute pause here. Wait for our next presenter.
I'll move to accept his information.
Thank you. And we will call the question. I'm in favor. Member Bigger?
In favor?
Member Eichert?
In favor.
Member Link?
In favor.
Member Greer?
In favor?
Member Kester?
In favor.
Member Larson?
In favor.
Member Wilson?
In favor.
And Member Desmet?
In favor.
That is carried. All right, our next guest is Brett Buchal from Environment and Protected Areas. Welcome.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. I guess it's been maybe a brief background. So I'm a species at risk biologist with the government of Alberta and Fish and Wildlife Environment and Protected Areas now. 2 days from now, we'll find out. But actually, this is, I'm glad to be here. I used to be the area biologist for this part of the world, which would have actually covered what is known as WMU, or Wildlife Management Unit 156. And it was always a desire to go to all of the agricultural service boards across our area. So from KID, Kananaskis, all the way out. This would be the further east. Fortunately, we never made it, as I was a wildlife biologist, and so I'm coming to you as a species at risk bio. So I initially, the reason I'm here, I guess, is I was looking for access to the Rosebud River. And I said, oh man, I don't know, I don't have enough contacts, I don't know who. So I'm like, I'll contact the ag fieldman and see where I can go. So I contacted George, and George said, oh, sure, I have some spots, but in exchange, I need you to come here and talk. And so that's the short reason of why I'm here. And when I was thinking about what I would be best able to talk to you today, I said species at risk 101. So what is it that we're doing? Try to alleviate, any concerns or questions you might have. Alleviate might not be the best word there. And then, of course, I threw this into ChatGPT, and it comes up with Guardians of the Wild, Alberta's journey to safeguard species at risk. So we'll go with that. So what are species at risk? And talking, I guess, at an agricultural point of view, there are a lot of questions. And this is I've been in this position for 2 years. And I will say this last year, I received a lot of questions like, why do we need to do this? What are you gonna come take away my land? Are you gonna come take away my rights to my land? And so there's a lot of concerns that I'm actually hearing. Not the first time I've heard this, but this does give me an opportunity to say, that's not what we're trying to do, and what we're trying to do is actually work with you, because if they are on your land, you're doing things right, from my perspective. So what is a species at risk? Well, it's any natural plant or animal, so emphasis on natural, so an endemic species that would have naturally occurred here, that is in danger of extinction or disappearing from the province. When we notice these species are at a decline, we tend to call them species at risk when they get less and less in number. And we use terms like special concern, threatened, endangered, extirpated, which means they're no longer in this area, but they still might exist in another area, or finally extinct, when they no longer occur in any area on the world. And gone. And that's what we're trying to prevent. So why are things at risk? Well, loss of habitat. With the habitat we have, we tend to degrade through various human disturbance, sometimes even while it's not affecting the habitat, building a road right beside can cause impacts. The introduction of exotic species or invasive species is a really big one. Disease is becoming larger and larger of a focus. Persecution, so when we're actively going out, so I can think of maybe snakes as an example. Isolation populations, so after we've degraded the habitat and then the habitats are separated, that isolation can lead to populations disappearing. Pesticides, probably not, maybe I'll just say chemicals. Overharvest has been a big one in the past. I guess the best example of that would have been trumpeter swans. Trumpeter swans probably occurred in this area 100 years ago. Big feather hats were a rage at the turn of the 20th century, and that overharvest led to them disappearing. Cool story, they're coming back. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see trumpeter swans on some of the lakes around here in the upcoming 5 to 10 years even. We've seen an increase in their numbers. And some of them we just don't know. So like I said, I wanted to talk about 101. What is our process? So we have these general program 1 through 6, general status. We go through detailed status, legislation, recovery, planning, prevention, and implementation. I'm not going to try to bore you with too many slides that look like this, but this describes kind of how we do things. So we look every 5 to 10 years, we go through all the species in Alberta, and we look at number of sources, databases, published literature, and we come up with a scoring. And that scoring is going to lead us to say, okay, they're maybe extinct. We already know they're gone. They're secure. We seem to have red-tailed hawks everywhere, ground squirrels everywhere. So they're not something we're going to be concerned with. Or like, well, you know what? That species seems to be disappearing from. Maybe we should put it as sensitive or maybe at risk. As soon as it goes to that maybe at risk or at risk side, we then go into a detailed status where we're now going into a lot of detail and collecting information on that species. And then we determine whether or not that species becomes a candidate for being listed. So this is more or less the same image, just perhaps a slightly more colorful. So when we get to that it might be listed, we look for data collection. We are going to then bring that information to our minister, and then it finally becomes, once the minister says, yes, this should be listed, we have 2 years' time upon which to create a recovery plan, and that recovery plan guides our actions. And this all happened starting in 1996 is when it first became an occurrence in Alberta. Does that mean there's a question? No. And by the way, if there's any questions on any of this, please just speak up as we go. So the minister, so it goes to the Endangered Species Committee, which provides a recommendation whether a species becomes endangered and threatened. The minister then makes that decision, and once that decision is made, they become listed in our wildlife regulations, and it provides protections for birds, mammals, reptiles, amphibians, and plants. So an endangered species is a species that's facing imminent danger of being extirpated or extinction. So in the top, I have a greater sage-grouse. I don't know if you've heard stories of the greater sage-grouse south of Medicine Hat, but 10 years ago, there was 14 birds left in the province. We've raised that number all the way up to maybe 35. And then we just went through a recent reintroduction where we brought 40 birds from the States. But that species is facing, it's on the edge in Alberta. A threatened species, it could be endangered if limiting factors are not reversed. So here's a picture of a northern leopard frog. These frogs used to be everywhere, at least in the prairie parkland, so from Edmonton south. And in the late 90s, early 2000s, they found that they were only found in about 9 spots. Still lots of them at those spots, so there would be 9 wetlands, including right around here along the Rosebud River. Was one where that was a big spot for them. However, we've started to reverse some of their factors. Admittedly, some of them we don't know, but ensuring clean water, protecting the areas. And so they're listed as threatened. They're not at immediate risk of being extinct in Alberta or extirpated, but they are considered threatened. So here's just a list of all the species, and I'll go through this a little bit later, that are considered endangered in red or threatened in blue. And in Wheatland County, these are the listed species that we have. So the ferruginous hawk, the northern leopard frog, as I indicated, bats, which have been a recent addition due to disease, the bank swallow, and I put bank swallow in, so there's a picture of the ferruginous hawk. Forgot I did this. The northern leopard frog, little brown myotis, the piping plover, just a small little shorebird there. The reason I have these in question marks is we don't believe they occur in this part of the world anymore. The last observation would have been down on Namaka Lake, and that occurred in 1998. Burrowing owl, I remember doing burrowing owl surveys when I first graduated north of here, just north of here actually, and seeing them and then not seeing them, and that would have been 25 years ago.
I saw one last week, you're good.
Oh, yeah. Did you down in this part of the world? Whereabouts? Well, we can afterwards, perhaps. That would be great. And bank swallows. And the only reason I highlighted bank swallows is they've been in the news a little bit with a certain racetrack, I believe that's. And I'll leave it at that. And then we also have species that are of concern where we're monitoring them, but they're not considered endangered or threatened at this point. So it's a loggerhead shrike, also known as a butcherbird, long-billed curlews, Sprague's pipit, which is a sparrow. Often we find them always pretty much in native pasture, and they're the as they kind of come down. Very rarely seen. And then prairie falcon, and we have numerous spots along the Rosebud River. Now, when I talk about species at risk, every one often refers to the Species at Risk Act, which is a federal piece of legislation. And this came in about 20 years ago, actually almost exactly 20 years ago, for endangered and threatened species across Canada. Now, this is a federal act, and it applies on federal land to aquatic species and to migratory birds, under which the federal act has legislation over. So Migratory Bird Convention Act is a international act with the United States federally, and aquatic species because for the most part the feds have ownership over at least navigable waters.
North Saskatchewan is one.
Yeah, North Saskatchewan, South Saskatchewan, all those navigable waters. Admittedly, all the wetlands and large lakes would fall under provincial jurisdiction, because the bed and shore would be considered Crown land. It does not apply on provincial land unless and private land, unless it's passed by a federal order in council. So I'll spend a little bit more time on that. So on private and public land in Alberta, wildlife is generally under the jurisdiction of the province. On federal lands in Alberta, national parks, military reserves, migratory birds, and navigable lakes or navigable waters, the Species at Risk Act could apply. And the only what if we are doing things inadequately as determined by the federal government may present a case to take over jurisdiction. And a federal order of cabinet must be pursued, but if we could demonstrate effective protection, then that action would cease. So if we provide adequate protection for our species at risk, federal government cannot take over jurisdiction, and it revolves around us. So the only time this has often been the threat, I use that word generously, for caribou in the province, but so far there's been an agreement and the province is still maintaining control of management of caribou. But this is a threat, and this is why we're trying to manage it, and we do things. So what do we do? Well, we have a recovery plan that tells us what needs to be done. And then we have to figure out, are we delivering with a maintenance or a recovery goal? So for a maintenance, we have species here on the, I guess depends on how you're looking at it, but the small shorebird is a piping plover. It was never widely abundant. It was probably in very low numbers throughout the province, typically on alkali ponds. And so largely we're trying to just focus on maintaining the species at current levels, maybe increasing them slightly, but we're never going to take them off the endangered species list. Conversely, we have a recovery goal for the northern leopard frog. Its experience declines, but we've been able to stabilize it, and we're looking to recover the population. Like I said, there was 9 breeding locations in early 2000s. Now we're close to closing in on 100. Generally speaking, prevention is more cost effective to prevent a species from coming at risk. So we have management plans for species of concerns, and we provide research to fill in data gaps, and we look into conservation and stewardship programs to prevent this. A lot of this is habitat based. For example, I see you have an Ellis flag on the outside of your building, so programs like that help work towards conservation of species. So species of special concern, we have some here, the ones I've underlined: loggerhead shrike, Sprague's pipit, long-billed curlew, prairie falcon. And then implementation. A plan, of course, is pretty useless unless we've implemented it. And these are carried out by us as government, perhaps even organizations such as in Wheatland County and individuals. I have an example of a program that works more down south, but it's called Multi-SAR. Multi-species at risk is how the program originated about 20 years ago. And they work with landowners, providing them, I guess, funding opportunities to improve the stewardship of their land. But as I was mentioning before, most of our implementation talks about building partnerships. And really at the crux of this is stewardship is what we're talking about. So I don't think there's been a case in Alberta that I'm aware of where someone's come in and said, you can't do that, you must do this, without building more of a, rather focusing on how do we achieve your goals? You're raising cattle, how do we get your cattle and preserve habitat for a piping plover? Oh, we can provide fencing around that wetland. Here we go, there's a solution. Some of our successes include peregrine falcon, trumpeter swan, northern leopard frog, and a plant called the western blue flag. Just going back to the trumpeter swan, on the west side, north and west of Calgary now, we are starting to see them breed from Calgary up to Olds, and they haven't been there for 100 years. So just to go again, work with others to achieve our recovery actions, so stewardship, and we try to incorporate some of the species at risk requirements into policy, into planning, and into operational items. Oil and gas setbacks is one of them. So I think the big piece here is that working together and sharing information can lead to strategies that benefit both land use interests and wildlife values. And never doubt that a small group of committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And that's my brief overview of species at risk. I hope I covered most of the points, but if you have any questions, I'd be eager to answer any.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting and informative. Any questions from Member Larson?
Thanks for that. That was good. Couple of questions. Native prairie grass. Example, my neighbors just sold 3 sections of it and it was promptly broke up.
Yep.
After paying $3,000 an acre for native grass, if you can believe. Is there any, so there's getting to be less and less of it. So for those of us that still have it, is there anything that you have for if we're, so as you probably know, there's a number of species of grass that are native grass and they're different depending on the part of
where you are.
you're in.
Yeah.
Is there a way to establish some that have, example, like on the edges of wetlands, like years when we have really, really wet years, it'll go up and it'll take some of that grass away and then typically foxtail barley or something will grow in there. Is there a way to get seeds for that? And
Yes.
then my other question is, how does the merlin fit into the species? Is it in any kind of danger or
The merlin, the bird?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have been more clear.
Yeah, no, just because there's an app, that's a merlin birding app that everyone's using.
No, the one that's a type of falcon.
Okay. First, yes, there are seeds available.
Okay.
You just have to, depends on where you go. So, why can't I think of the grass seed? It is pricey.
Well, I know it's pricey.
Yeah, but it is available. Pretty much any grass seed dealer will be able to provide it.
Oh, okay.
And the merlin is considered secure in Alberta. And it just depends on where you go. They tend to be boom or bust, depends on kind of where their
Yeah.
other birds
Okay.
are.
Thanks.
Member Link?
Thank you. You mentioned that you get a lot of questions about species at risk, and especially from landowners. And I think you addressed well through your points around partnership and the mechanisms that we use in Alberta to facilitate recovery, and that it is voluntary and it respects landowner rights.
That's right.
You also referenced you get asked frequently about the why. Can you just speak, like, how would you answer that if we had agricultural producers that were, why should I care about this? And we get into complex answers about biodiversity and things like that, but what's the best way to convey why all of us should care about, in a balanced way, recognizing that, but how do you answer that?
That is probably one of the hardest questions we get. And the reason I say hardest questions is I can give you a reason from my perspective of why Amber needs to conserve this wetland, native grass. But from your perspective, that why might not resonate. And so while I have grass isn't paying the bills, price of beef has gone through the floor, canola is looking really good right now, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of that why really depends on, we think this is important, and this is a really key piece of not only that shows your stewardship and your actions, but also it's a key piece of Alberta's history. And then hopefully from there, working and understanding what makes things tick. And I think that's the biggest issue we have overall with species at risk management, at least on the prairies, is that why is very individual. And so it takes working with that individual on a basis. So there's not a very large scale program to say, because it's important, because we need this. I mean, I could talk about genetics and it's going to go way over, right? Like, it's not going to mean anything. But if I can understand why they've kept it to this point, because I like the way the sun sets on my wetland. That's a great reason, right? So it's going to be very individualistic. Kind of didn't answer your question, but I hope I tried to, yeah.
Well, I think it's a fair answer, and probably better than a simplistic answer, right? Because it is complicated. I appreciate that.
Member Greer?
To further to Amber's question, I'd focus on the how. So as producers, or you mentioned ALUS participants, if there's anyone interested in establishing or assisting with reestablishing species, how would they go about that?
So reestablishing species is one that we are, it is one that it depends. For some species that are on that kind of knife's edge of disappearing, we're going to work to bring species back, and like we said, we translocated. For other species, we haven't gone that far. So for northern leopard frogs, I get questions about, I'd like to put northern leopard frogs in my pond. Okay, but that becomes a really, which isn't to say we don't do it, but we don't encourage it, because species might not be there for a reason, there might be disease, and to do it on an individual land basis, it doesn't become feasible. But what we do encourage is to say, kind of using a field of dreams approach, if you build it, they will come. So if you maintain the habitat, if you work to plant native seeds, generally speaking, some species at risk will show up.
Fantastic, thank you.
Can you talk about snakes?
Sure.
Were they here in abundance at any time? We don't see any around, but I've heard that they have less gopher problems around the Medicine Hat area because they have snakes.
So snakes are, and I guess it depends on your perspective of what is a gopher problem. I guess I get lots of lots of people complaining about gophers down in the hat too. But yes, snakes are, at least the larger snakes are a good, I guess, pest removal. Same with hawks. Probably badgers, but badgers bring their own issues. So owls, absolutely, yes. Yes, so they are. We probably did have rattlesnakes and bull snakes coming up through this part of the world once upon a time. We do know that we have bull snakes coming up into Drumheller along the Red Deer River. And there's probably some movement up the Rosebud, but probably not tons. For the most part, a lot of our snakes tend to be restricted to some of our major rivers now, just based on where they need to den. And it's just kind of shrunk back, just based on land, more or less land change. Snakes probably have a harder time navigating cropped fields.
You got your mic on? Sorry.
There was a rattlesnake at Meadowbrook Hall about 4 years ago.
Oh, interesting.
Where's that? Sorry, I'm not familiar. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Another question I had was about pheasants. So we have lots of organizations that want to try to reestablish, but they're not they're imported, right, from
Yes.
Asia?
Yeah.
So where do they stand from your perspective? Would you promote reestablishment, or what's your position on that?
So they are, I think actually pheasants originated from like China and then over to Europe and then through to here. So they're a recreational bird, and our regulations in Alberta allow for the hunting of recreational birds, including pheasants, chakars, huns, Hungarian partridges, that as soon as you're driving on any road, you'll see a couple fly off if there's. So I think there's value in allowing. They do pretty good in this part of the world, pheasants for the most part. Interesting, I can go a few miles north of Rosebud and then all of a sudden you don't see them anymore. So they do well here. Why, I'm not sure. But I think the value of having pheasant releases is it gets individuals interested in going outside. They might not hunt. It provides them an opportunity, a recreational. And if you're enjoying that, you're more likely to say, oh, you know what? I'm going to leave that 2 feet by my fence row of grass. That's probably one of the biggest differences I've noticed in my past 20 years is that fence rows are all gone, right? For the most part, it's just because it's technology and you can get right close. It's no longer there. So you might change your viewpoint. They might allow for more biodiversity. Now there is there is a caution, like we can't just be introducing species everywhere, but they've been a long time and depends on our winter. They don't tend to become very established, but it does help, I think, by enabling other uses of the land in consideration of how the land can maybe be managed.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anybody? Oh, George.
George from administration here, and my question is, would you be able to give us some highlights on what would happen if burrowing owls were found on a private landowner's property? I've heard a lot of stories over the years, and I don't necessarily understand what exactly would happen. If you could just give us a high level, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Actually, so if we found burrowing owls on the land, the first thing would be like, okay, cool, there's burrowing owls on the land, right? what's actually going to happen is probably not a whole bunch. It's not like there's going to be like an army of biologists coming and saying, hey, what's going on? And there might be conversations with the landowner and saying, hey, you have burrowing owl. How long have you had burrowing owls? You know, is this a one-time event, or has this been something that's been occurring for many years? I think the last burrowing owls that I'm aware of were seen closer to the wintering hills.
I know where they are, but I'm not.
So, but more or less, it starts with that. Oh, you know, and then if it's a one-time event, cool, celebrate that event. We probably wouldn't go beyond that at that point, other than to acknowledge that they've been there, because that improves our understanding of distribution. And things like burrowing owls tend to be pretty flighty, meaning that they're here one year and gone the next. However, if it's been, we're able to talk with the landowner, and he's like, oh, now they've been actually coming here for the last 10 years. Well, that's cool. Now all of a sudden we understand that there's been at least 2 generations that have come, because, we were talking about a 5-year at the most, 5 to 7, I guess, but chances are there's at least 2 generations. So they've bred and then they've come back, and then we can start, oh, okay, well, and then probably maybe even then starting conversations or bringing in other agencies to say, well, are you interested in them? Like, if the landowner says, I don't want these things and they're just a piece of crap, it's like, okay, cool. Just leave it, maybe monitor it from wherever we can. If it's on the side of the road, like typically it's a ball of fluff on a fence post, and you kind of pause and you're like, well, what is that? And then it stands up and you see these skinny legs and you're like, okay, there's a burrowing owl. But if the landowner, and this is typically where we see is that they show some interest and like, yeah, they're there. Chances are they're there because of something the landowner has been doing. The way it's been feeding or, setting up his fencing and putting his cattle out. For the most part, I'm assuming it's on cattle. There has been an occasion where they're on cropped fields, but for the most part, they're on pasture. And then look to work with the landowner at that point and see if there's anything that can be done, or if there's any opportunities. So would be kind of how it would flow from there.
You know what, mine was right on the solar farm.
Oh, really? Which solar? There's a lot now. And then, yeah, so that's typically how it would work.
Got a question.
Oh, here we go. Go ahead, Member Kester.
Yeah, I used to, 20 years ago or so, started farming. We had burrowing owls, and they were kind of cute, and you'd see them once in a while. Pretty well left them alone. Go out and look at the cows. Yep, they're still there. And then I made the mistake of telling somebody. Pretty soon I see these people walking down the highway, popping over across the fence, and of course they're looking at the burrowing owls. And that was the last year I seen them. I haven't been back. They were scared away. I'm thinking, I'd like to think they got too busy for them. I don't want to think of other activities that might have chased them away. But anyway, yeah, as soon as you tell somebody, or as soon as their habitat changes and it gets busy, they found some other place. So that's what got me concerned about these bank swallows over in Rosebud. And from my understanding, they're a huge colony of them, probably one of the biggest in Canada, and they're under risk. And we're allowing a racetrack to be right beside them. And when I've been told, I haven't read it, that one of the greatest dangers to these birds is when they're feeding, getting struck by cars and in the riparian areas. And I understand that this racetrack is going ahead, and they're going to have all protective measures put in place, and it'll be just great. But I don't believe it. Do you have any comments? Are you allowed to comment? Or how can a racetrack be allowed to set up shop right next door to these things. And the peregrine falcons there watching, and numerous birds on the Red Deer, the Rosebud River there.
Okay, I'm going to answer, I think there was two questions there. One about other people's coming in and photographing or walking on the land, and then the second one about the racetrack. So admittedly, on the racetrack, I'm going to try to stay in my narrow piece. So you can tell me if I've done that correctly or not. But first off, photographers, and I guess we're 10 kilometers outside of Strathmore. But that urban-rural divide is always a really key divide, I guess. So we, as government, try to do a good job of keeping information hidden to a point, while at the same time informing so people know about that. Having people like to see new and novel things. And, you know, I live on the west side of Calgary, and Calgary is an interesting place. And they have lots of people who are very passionate about wildlife, but are also somewhat naive about how to proceed with wildlife. Everywhere from, oh, look, there's a bear on the highway, I'm going to get out of my car, to crossing someone's private land, leaving a gate open because they think they have the right to go photograph something. We have, going back to sage grouse, we have 3 leks, which is their dancing grounds in the province. And so they dance, and that's how they breed, is they have to dance for a female, impress her, and then they get to breed. Not unlike, I guess, a nightclub. But, and we had we're working really hard to manage this. We had all these, worked with industry. This is prior to us getting some policy and strategy in place. But we're working really hard, everyone's agreeing, and then we go out there one morning to count, and there's a photographer standing right in the middle of the lek, and the birds aren't dancing. And we're like, what do you do? But he found out. And so it is something we're working with. Admittedly, our act, Wildlife Act in Alberta, is a little, it provides exceptions to photography. So what we're working with is trying to provide guidance, direction, ethics to photographers so they know. And I think just more information, education will be the best thing that we can continue to do in that regard. But you are right, that disturbance can have an impact on things like burrowing owls, where someone's walking up to a nest to try to get a picture. Okay, the racetrack. So the way that it works, and this would stand, so that's in Starland County, correct? Yes, and it's just on the edge of Wheatland, or Nihil. Nihil? Yes, Starland's further north. And yeah, okay. So it's in Nihil on the border of Wheatland, kind of. Interestingly enough, it's on the north side of the Rosebud River. And the reason that my colleague from Red Deer got referred to it was because it's on the north side. If it would have occurred on the south side, then I would be the one working on it. But we, on private land, it was a private land development. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but purchased private land. He made company consortium, I guess, of doctors, made a pitch to Nihils to say, this is what we want to do. And they would have followed that county's process and gone through that. So it becomes, to what degree we got referred to because they're going to be impacting a wetland. Other than that, we would not, we being wildlife, would have not been referred. And so we brought up the point about saying, yeah, you know what, there is a concern here with bank swallows. They're managed federally, as I mentioned before, because they're a migratory bird. But you need to take care. That went to a tribunal. Admittedly, I was not invited to the tribunal, so I'm not sure exactly what was discussed at that level. but a decision was made and it was allowed to carry forward. Are there risks? Absolutely. But there's risks with anything we do. So the prime, I guess, from a species at risk point of view, or just wildlife biologist point of view, I would look to avoid is typically what we say. Well, do you need to be there? Do you need to cut down that riparian vegetation, fill in that wetland? Okay, mitigate. What can we do to mitigate? Can we put in a wetland somewhere else? Can we do this to finally moving to a compensation? Okay, so you're going to go through how do we now compensate for that loss? I don't know to what extent those are occurring in that, but my understanding is it's been approved with some conditions, so I assume those conditions would be working towards perhaps not avoidance, but mitigation. So, like I said, you could probably fill me in because I'm sure you're more aware of what has occurred there. But I do know in looking at, I guess in preparation for this, because I figured a question like that would come up, is it does appear that Wheatland County as a whole has a stronger policy base for making those kind of decisions. So if there was to be a racetrack that would occur in Wheatland County, there's this, in looking at it, there appears to be there's a major development. You need to do an environmental assessment. You need to get buy-in from all the landowners. And so I think those kind of things, having a good policy process for development, really help because they identify what are the benefits of said development. Okay, it's going to bring in hotels and then there's money. Okay, I get that. What are the costs of said development? Okay, this. And now you get to weigh that and say, okay, do the benefits outweigh the costs, or are the costs going to be something that's going to make us rethink this decision? So I guess first off, kudos to Wheatland. I think you have probably a little bit more pressure coming from that metropolis to the west here that might create that, but I think those processes definitely help make those decisions. Does that help answer that question? Like I said, I kind of danced around, but.
It doesn't answer it, but I just wanted your perspective. I know you couldn't do anything about it. I've heard all the arguments, and I know well aware of the differences in how the two counties do development now. We were being closer to Calgary. We have more pressures, I guess, than what they had. So.
I would agree. I do think the one thing that probably could be done or should be done, I'll recommend, is there should be monitoring to help us understand, because this probably won't be the last time there's going to be some ask to do something next to a bank swallow or the Rosebud River or, and understanding how creatures react to certain developments will allow more informed decisions going forward. So if the colony is wiped out, okay, well, whoops, that sucks, but at least we know. If the colony does fine, or if the colony number's reduced, or, it allows us to move forward.
Very good. Any other questions? Nope. It sounds like everybody's good. So thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate all the awesome information. Good luck with your work on the Rosebud River.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Why don't we take a 10-minute break and reconvene in 10 minutes?
Thank you for your time.
Oh, we just need to accept for information, please. Oh, Sandra has moved to accept the report as information. Member Bigger?
In favor?
Member Eichert?
In favor.
Member Link?
In favor.
Member Greer?
In favor?
Member Kester?
In favor.
Member Larson?
In favor.
Member Wilson?
In favor.
And Member DeSmit? And I'm in favor. That's carried. Thank you, everyone. I did. All right, we'll be back in 10 minutes.
Oh, good.
Back to order. Glenn, I just want to confirm you're there. You're still there?
Still here?
And Donna?
Oh, yes, I'm still here.
You're fantastic. Great. Thank you. All right, we'll continue on with our agenda. The next thing on our list is the new ASB program initiatives. So George, do you want to walk us through them? Yeah.
Great. Through the chair, George here from administration. I'll just talk about a couple of new program initiatives from the Ag Service Board. Please bear with me. This is a lot of reading. So this is a partnership with the Ducks Unlimited, DUC. So continual pressure is being placed on agricultural producers to implement actions over their land base to reduce biodiversity impacts and lessen water security issues, among other directives. These queries can create opportunities, but can also create uncertainty among producers, raise concerns for their business plans, or lead to obstacles due to a lack of information. DUC has a unique opportunity to inform agricultural producers on the potential issues, improve their understanding, and guide them towards sound management decisions via the Farm and Ranch Stewardship Tool, which I will refer to as FIRST. This program will decrease uncertainty and provide solid information to aid producers in understanding, planning, and adopting conservation programs or best management practices, BMPs, to their business model, whether it be cattle, grass, or cropland production. The history of the DUC has had an active presence in conservation landscapes since 1938 and in Wheatland County since the 1940s. The organization's early days focused on wetlands and primarily on irrigation infrastructure to drought-proof the prairies. This approach has evolved over the decades to see the most current DUC programs being land-based, given that the combination of these associated habitats with both large and small wetlands jointly contribute to the overall benefit of waterfowl and wildlife biodiversity. Wheatland County has been a DUC hub beginning with George Freeman's work after World War II. The initial DUC project was north of Cheadle with the Sadlers in 1947, and the expansion project inventory continues with many subsequent county residents building on George's initial habitat conservation works, both within the county, municipal boundaries, and throughout southern Alberta. DUC continues to retain conservation staff within Strathmore area, and DUC has many active cooperators within the county's boundaries that have entered into voluntary agreements such as forage conservation, grassland retention, and wetland restoration. A couple key attributes of the DUC habitat projects and programs within the Wheatlands municipal jurisdiction include 84 conservation projects and 26,071 acres conserved. The first is the first step towards addressing producers' information needs. The agricultural community builds relationships based on trust and require a starting point to achieve this. First is a non-binding agreement between DUC and the producers, which enables growers to receive information, ask questions, and receive valuable operational consultation to create a beneficial short and long-term plans, be that through financial incentives, infrastructure improvements such as fence or stock water, or management efficiencies to optimize return on investment. Wheatland County is positioned within two high production waterfowl landscapes, Calgary East and the Wintering Hills. Each area possesses distinct features both from a habitat perspective and from the general viewpoint of applied agricultural practices. Program overview. The first will be offered freely to Wheatland County growers. Potential cooperators will be required to provide legal land descriptions for their operations, whether they be owned, leased, or managed by a formal relationship with a neighbor or third party. This process will occur primarily on fee simple holdings, but that could be applied to crown leases or irrigation district ownership. A field level planning map will then be generated to identify habitat segments and infrastructures, such as dugout and fences, to enable extension of the conservation planning. To be enrolled, cooperators will be required to commit to a 5-year interaction with DUC delivery staff. If cooperators agree to the contract terms and execute a non-binding agreement, we will then provide a map and begin a new relationship. As part of the commitment, DUC will agree to multiple contact points over the course of the year, either face-to-face meetings, email, or other methods. From this point, the outcomes, trends, and other relative factors will be tracked to indicate success and linkage to future conservation uptake. Objective. The first pilot will not have a specific acreage goal. Given that the operations vary in size, we propose an objective of 12 participating parties over a 2-year window. It is further envisioned that this objective should influence between 5,000 and 15,000 acres of land holdings based on current Statistics Canada estimates for the average Alberta farm size. This target could be expanded to given levels of positive interest in the position of budget assignment for expansion. We have not set individual habitat targets as the plan encompasses the entirety of the operations land holdings, both owned and under management. However, the habitat delineation of wetlands, grasslands, and cultivation will be identified on maps to establish baselines. The reference points will then work twofold. Firstly, to clearly identify areas in which to apply conservation land management change via established programs or best management practices. And secondly, to illustrate the effective change over the 5-year term. Benefits to the county. The county will possess a direct conduit towards implementing environmental goods and services to the agricultural community while ensuring that solid fact-based information is disseminated. DUC is a safe, respected conservation organization that clearly links program uptake to farm and ranch stewardship, communicating that their dollars are being allocated responsibly. By incorporating baseline land management at the inception, as well as continual conversations with cooperators, followed by feedback loops, DUC will illustrate progress to the County Council and the Ag Service Board and the ratepayers. The benefit for DUC. DUC will utilize our connection with cooperators to advance our conservation program uptake. Our goal is to work continuously with cooperators on a suite of offered programs from forage conservation, wetland restoration, and winter cereals to the conservation easements. An educated producer is an active long-term conservation partner, which is a foundation to the DUC's organization's mission. Conclusion and recommendations, partnership linkage. DUC is offering Wheatland County the opportunity to participate in this pilot, which could be customized to accommodate county mandates, budget inclusion, and the level of resource commitment with which the council and ASB are comfortable. Listed below are examples of options for potential areas of involvement. However, additional actions can be entertained and included post-concept approval. A partnership split, so it could be 50-50 on all aspects. County sole entity, so 100% DUC acts as the agent for the county. The inverse there with the DUC sole entity, and the county acts as a silent partner and does not act in any capacity other than acknowledging the pilot's delivery within the municipal boundaries. Potential actions, tactics, so joint supply entry to newsletters, mail drops, and other actions to promote to ratepayers, joint coordinated field tours, workshops, and other associated events, joint co-branded materials, joint articles promotion, and public acknowledgements. The options as presented can pivot to reflect the lead interest. The percentage was stated as a placeholder and will shift to align with the assumed outcome of each party. If a declaration of a 2080 represents the county DU duties contributions rather than the 50-50 as stated, it will be addressed as such in the final partnership MOA. Addressing each party's commitments, be it staff, assignments, direct costs, or other subscribed actions, will set the formula for the final calculation. DUC is flexible in support of this pilot. We want to promote the county's expectations at whatever capacity they deem justifiable within Wheatland County's budget and mandate for the agricultural ratepayers. DUC understands that this is not a firm representation of a finished product, but the position is currently in play as we are developing, DUC is developing this tool in conjunction with a potential pilot approach. Packages. Packages will include the map plans, fact sheets on DUC programs, informational sheets on wetlands, grasslands, frequently asked questions, etc. Anything Wheatland County wishes to insert is open for inclusion. These packages will be developed with the county recognition, be it logos, contact links, or relative information, reflective of the level of involvement. Costing on this is unknown until a portfolio layout is drafted. This is an avenue where the county could agree to supply materials, printing, etc. as an in-kind contribution to these line items. For conceptual budget plans, it is estimated at $250 per cooperator, thus an expected expenditure of $3,000 over a 2-year pilot window. There will also be associated costs for air photo acquisition, participant incentives, etc. The costing is unknown for these items as actions directly connect to whatever items actions will entail. Staffing DUC. Staffing involvement is directly tied to the level of interaction that is decided upon by each entity. DUC staff will guide all aspects, including but not limited to GIS generation of plans, consultation engagement sessions, and any follow-up actions that arise. DUC estimates the commitment of 3 days per client to implement the consultation and client needs over the course of the interaction window, which is a 5-year term. This exceeds the pilot phase as proposed, but its level of commitment we believe necessary to achieve our desired outcomes. The county's obligation can vary. If Wheatland County staff is present at sessions, be it initial or through the process, it is up for discussion. The correlating allocation is then up to council for determination. We do not envision this level of interaction, but it is there if deemed essential to Wheatland County needs. Staffing Wheatland County. Our assumption is that staff commitments from Wheatland County would primarily engage by a facilitation role tied to quality control on packages, event collaboration if undertaken, among other applicable connections that may arise. We view the commitment as 2 distinct columns, the initial collaboration of the pilot's development and followed by the implementation. Pardon me. It is assumed that the county's larger time allocation will be to the development phase and less through implementation. Additionally, they will need to have a county representative for participants to approach if called upon. Our projected time for Wheatland team is highly dependent on the involvement agreed to, but for the estimation purposes, a conservation value is 10 business days spread over the pilot term, which is 2 years. Pardon me. Implementation timeline. DUC will initiate development on program specifics and correlating budgets immediately upon notification of Wheatland County's acknowledgement of proceeding with a formal partnership. Our documentation will follow up with chosen aspects of facilitation for a comprehensive work plan and associated budgets. This process will be performed in advance of the county's next window for review and final approval, to be following by the drafting of the memorandum of agreement for execution by each party's internal signing authorities. Engagement with potential cooperators is projected to begin after harvest and continue through the winter months. I'll move on to the next part, which is a partnership with the Alberta Conservation Association. Background, and Alberta is abundant with diverse wildlife, fish, and habitats, where future generations come to value and enjoy the rich outdoor heritage. The ACA has, the Alberta Conservation Association, ACA, has conserved, protected, and enhanced fish and wildlife populations for all Albertans to enjoy. The ACA's mission is rooted in science. Their biologists study local wildlife, fish, and plants to help them thrive, tackling challenges like invasive weeds and preserving precious habitats. From tracking wolverines to measuring lake oxygen levels, their work ensures Alberta remains beautiful and balanced. Education is key to their mission. They share discoveries through articles, social media, events, and more, engaging the public in conservation efforts. They strive to make conservation inclusive for all Albertans, recognizing diverse interests across genders, races, religions, cultures, and beliefs. At Alberta Conservation Association, they lead with values that ensure participation in hunting, fishing, and nature-based recreation is accessible to everyone, continually seeking to extend these benefits to underrepresented communities. Discussion about the pheasant release in Nameka. Just south of Rockyford on Ducks Unlimited Canada owned land, the ACA pheasant release program has been running for a decade. This sanctuary serves as a haven for hunters, environmental enthusiasts, and conservationists, offering a chance to witness or pursue these birds. Annually, the ACA releases 640 pheasants into the wild at this location, which is the northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast of 6 of 23 of 23, west of the 4th. Opportunities are available for volunteering and funding support for the Nameka release site, which requires $20,000 annually for its operation. This funding would cover the expenses of acquiring birds, maintaining the site, and supporting local Wheatland County farmer involved in raising the pheasants. Partnering with Wheatland County would make a significant milestone, making us the first corporate ally for pheasants release in Alberta, an honor the ACA would gratefully embrace. Benefits to the Wheatland County and ratepayers. This benefit This will benefit the Wheatland County pheasant population, allow for more hunting and more food for the local county residents. And we would be helping a local county landowner in raising the pheasants. A good pheasant habitat is a healthy natural ecosystem. And with this, upland game bird habitat captures carbon, reduces soil erosion, and enhances biodiversity. Pheasants, being a more accessible prey, serve as a natural deterrent against coyotes, thus safeguarding a rancher's livelihood. Conclusions and recommendations, the budget. This decision rests with the council allocating $2,000 to $5,000 initially for the ACA's annual cost of $20,000 would be greatly appreciated. Annual labor hours estimate, depending on the year, the estimated staff hours for the annual workload would be approximately 20 hours per year. So the Pheasants Forever portion is next. This is the Pheasants Forever Save the Ditches. So the background. Wheatland County has an abundance of pheasants in the area. The ring-necked pheasants has been part of Alberta's landscape for over 100 years. This upland bird originated from Asia, and its colorful touch brings the exotic to our farmland, rangelands, wetlands, rivers, valleys, roadside yards, and parks here in Wheatland County. In 1982, a group of pheasant hunters saw the connection between upland habitat loss and declining pheasant populations. An organization dedicated to wildlife habitat conservation was needed, and Pheasants Forever was formed. The Pheasants Forever mission work quickly garnered it a reputation as the habitat organization, a tagline the nonprofit conservation group uses proudly to this day. Pheasants Forever was formed in Alberta in 1992 by a group of individuals who were concerned with the diminishing populations of upland game birds due to their declining habitat in southern Alberta. It's Pheasants Forever's vision that current and future generations of hunters and conservationists can enjoy abundant populations of wild pheasants, quail, and other wildlife. 4 chapters in Calgary, Medicine Hat, Red Deer, and Lethbridge participate in fundraising for the enhancement and restoration of upland habitat in areas contained within most of the irrigated lands of southern Alberta. Today, the Calgary chapter is recognized as the top fundraising chapter for habitat in North America. For more information, you can visit a link that's displayed at www.pheasantsforever.org. Special pages. Discussion. Together, Wheatland County and Pheasants Forever can partner to preserve habitats. Selected ditches will be chosen for protection. This partnership may also extend to Volker Steven and other roadway owners. Today's heightened public interest in wildlife presents a unique opportunity. Every farm and ranch can contribute to protecting our natural resources, ensuring uplands and wetlands are preserved for future generations to enjoy. Our mission: to preserve the natural beauty and ecological integrity of our ditches. We aim to protect these vital habitats by preserving trespass farming, promoting native vegetation, and encourage sustainable land management practices. Through community engagement, education, and proactive conservation efforts, we strive to maintain our ditches as a thriving ecosystem that can support diverse wildlife and contribute to a healthy environment. Benefits to the Wheatland County and ratepayers: a ditch may not look like much, but it can be a small strip of upland bird paradise. This will benefit Wheatland County by reducing the occurrence of farming ditches, which has become more common in rural communities. Wheatland County would be promoting an awareness campaign of the natural benefits that healthy ditches and right-of-ways provide to society. Natural roadside ditches act as buffers, preventing excess nutrients from flowing into waterways. With 85% of wetlands lost on the prairies, we know that ditches replace wetlands as the primary defense of purifying water. The eco buffer of a ditch provides crop predators with a place to hide and offers additional habitat for predators to perch and attack crop pests, enhancing natural pest control in agricultural settings. A robust ditch habitat contributes to a healthy natural ecosystem, capturing carbon, reducing soil erosion, and enhancing biodiversity. Additionally, pheasants and other game birds, being more accessible prey, naturally deter coyotes and thus, again, protecting ranchers' livestock. Conclusions and recommendations. Budget: the estimated staff hours for the annual workload of this project would be approximately 40 hours, and the initial would be about 40 hours. So there's a little infographic in the package there. It talks about the benefits of keeping intact grasslands. And then for the last ASB program initiatives section here, we have the pitch-in program. And so I'll read the background here. This program is a volunteer program that helps keep communities clean. Families, community groups, and individuals are invited to pitch in and help clean up their own neighborhood. Help make Wheatland County beautiful by joining in this national campaign to clean up the environment. How it works is those interested in participating must submit a letter of interest along with proof of insurance and fill out an application form available on our website and or social media. There would need to be access work liability agreement in place for this program, along with appropriate insurance coverage. Wheatland County would provide garbage bags, roadsides, vests. Brazeau County currently employs this program, and they have a budget of $6,000, but they are increasing it to $10,000 for 2025. Groups could choose a Wheatland County-owned roadway on a first-come, first-served basis. Compensation would depend on a number of group members and miles of road being cleaned. Brazeau County has their program currently listed at $150 per mile, but are in the works of increasing it to $200 per mile starting in 2025. At the end of the cleanup, Wheatland County could assist with the collection of the garbage bags on the road. Discussion, the pitch in our mission is to foster a cleaner, healthier environment by organizing community-driven garbage cleanup programs. We aim to inspire residents and community groups to take pride in their surroundings, promote environmental stewardship, and work together to remove litter and waste. Through education, collaboration, and active participation, we strive to create a cleaner, more beautiful public spaces for everyone to enjoy. Benefits to Wheatland County and ratepayers. Implementing a garbage cleanup program in Wheatland County offers numerous benefits to both the county and its ratepayers. Not only does it improve the environment by reducing pollution and preserving natural beauty, but it also enhances public health and safety by mitigating health hazards associated with littering. Additionally, such a program fosters community pride and engagement while supporting economic development by attracting visitors. Moreover, it can lead to cost savings in waste management and environmental cleanup efforts over time. And that concludes my reading of this report. I am available for any questions.
Geez, you would have saved me a lot of reading last night if you told me you were going to read that.
Just generally, I'll read the backgrounds.
Any questions for George? Comments? Member Larson?
Might as well get started, I guess.
Yeah.
Ducks Unlimited, I can handle the initiatives. I don't know that I would want to support a $2,000 sponsorship with the pheasants. I'm struggling to see what benefit that has to the county's agricultural producers, since that's an introduced game bird. And I look at their rationale, and it's honestly, introducing pheasants isn't going to change whether coyotes decide to go after your calf or not. And farming the ditches, give me a break.
Okay. Any other comments? Did anybody else? Member Link?
Just to build on Member Eichert's comments, particularly
Member
around,
Larson?
or sorry, Member Larson, my apologies.
Okay. Now we got it.
My apologies. To build on what Member Larson said, I have had a request from agricultural producers to actually have increased farming of our ditches, particularly during like the significant drought times when feed has been in short supply. So I do have some concerns around that, although it did indicate that it could just be specific ditches that were designated. I guess prior to making a decision on that, I wouldn't mind just a little bit of engagement, or maybe our ASB team have done some engagement with our producers and might have some insight on that, but certainly a request that has been brought forward and actually that I've been intending just to dig into a little bit more.
As far as ducks go, they work with the Alice group quite extensively right now. So I'm not sure if that just is more of a, just putting it to Alice instead of the actual ASB. Seems like there's a lot of time commitments with some of these groups, so it's a matter of trying to figure out who's going to pick up that slack. And I know my grandson does a pheasant program, and through Wheatland Conservation, he gets paid. So there is some groups in this area that are paying for the pheasants to be released. And so, yeah, I'm not really in support of that. Mind you, I would have to recuse myself from voting if there was some money involved in it. I think that there used to be a adopt a mile of ditches where family would go and clean up the ditches and stuff like that. And I don't know what happened with that group or with that. But I think it is a good idea, but I'm not sure if anybody's in favor of paying for it. So, George?
George here from admin. I'd just like to comment regarding the trespass farming. I think that's such a strong word. I don't like it. We generally don't have a problem at ASB with that. The weeds usually are being controlled, and it's not often a problem at all. Specifically, certain areas would be looked at and engaging with private landowners who potentially maybe have a right of way, in the back 40 or something like that. It could be very specific and would never be like a blanket kind of thing, right? So one other thing I'd just like to mention regarding our ditches too is we do often get them sprayed out by producers sometimes, just making the turns when you're spraying or things like that. So sometimes, we go back and we reseed our ditches as well. So we do try and keep those up to standards, right? We do. I've never called anybody and said you cannot farm here in the right of way. That's just not something that's ever come up, and I don't think the ASB has a desire to go that route either. Regarding the benefit for pheasants in the county, I think it's just more of a recreational opportunity, and you're right, there could be some incentives through producer funding programs to increase habitat or something like that. So your comments are very fair. And yeah, that's just all I had to comment at this point. Thanks.
My ideas too are along the lines of what we've kind of heard already. I'm all for environmental sustainability, but we have already a number of programs here, such as ALICE, our Wheatland Environmental Stewardship, our awards program, our Shelter Belt demonstration site, and we help landowners access provincial and federal programs as well. I guess I don't want it to appear that we're focusing on environmental sustainability over agriculture. I think agriculture is our prime focus. And so I think it's good to provide access to different programs, but I don't know if we need to spend money to implement them. That's kind of where my point of view is. I think I just want to be careful that we aren't imposing programs on ag producers. I want to offer them to them, but not necessarily kind of look overreaching, heavy-handed with it, I guess. So that's my perspective. Any other comments? Donna or Glenn, do you have any comments on this?
No, good presentation. Kind of have the same thoughts as yourself. There is lots of pheasant programs around this. Well, not going to say lots, but I do know of one in the Bow River area. So I think the pheasants are being covered. Yeah, that's about all. Thanks.
Glenn, do you have any comments?
Yeah, ducks have been around for a long time, and I know of a few farmers, I myself included, have dealings with them. As far as they're voluntary, as far as the county getting involved, the only thing I know, we don't build as many roads as we used to, or fix them up. But if you destroy a habitat, you have to have a place to put a new wetland, right? So it's an easy partnership if you've got ducks to work with to restored wetland, or if there's anything like that. That makes some sense. But saving habitat in the road ditch for pheasants, I don't know how many of you here have hit pheasants. It's always on the road, and it's probably their back door. I think a bigger hit for the pheasants lately around here, they stay irrigated, is where a lot of them are. How many ditches have been closed out in the fields in the last 10 years due to pipelines, and they're being farmed over, and fences are being taken out. I like the programs, but I like to keep them voluntary. I like to keep, I don't know how to say it, non-farmers, gives them a way to participate and know how things are going, how things work out here. Just gives them a little bit of skin in the game. You know, they're always wanting to shoot birds. Well, a little skin in the game and help raise them and stuff. I think that would be more appropriate. The only thing I might consider is road ditches. I know the province hires or gets or invites the 4-H clubs once a year to clean the road ditches. That's all on provincial roads. But we got a few ditches in the county that are well traveled. I'm not saying they're excessively dirty. You do see the odd Tim Hortons cup and whatnot. Maybe it would be a bad idea to offer to the different 4-H clubs or whatever club. You don't have to be 4-H and offer them $150 or $200 a mile. Maybe that's not such a bad investment, but the rest of it, I just assume that it'd be the general public.
Thanks, Member Kester. Yeah, that's a good, the pitch-in program. So there is the Alberta Highway Cleanup, which can be accessed by any organization as a fundraising tool. But I guess that's right. It's on provincial roadways. This program might do well in our hamlets and could be accessed by even a family, I suppose, or whatever. It could be more kind of local, and maybe there's some benefit here. I don't know what people think. Member Lake?
Yeah, that program I do like, and I remember Member DeSmit, like, you used to see the signs, right? Like this road cleaned by the DeSmit family or whatever. I wonder if we could look at either the pitch-in program, or if we could, whether it's within that program or our own Maiden Wheatland program. Some people might not want financial compensation, but they might want and some of them were in memory of too, right? Like this section of road cleaned in memory of somebody. It might be a nice way. But signs do cost money. So maybe if we created a budget and people could choose whether they take like a small honorarium for their time and supplies. I'd like to keep it as streamlined as possible for our administration as well, being mindful of capacity. But if it was either compensation for, go buy your own garbage bags, whatever, gloves, whatever you need, or we would erect like a modest sign in recognition. I also know signs are very expensive, so we would need a little more information around that. But.
So my family, we did do the Highway 842 from Highway 1 down to Clooney. We had a sign erected by the province saying that we were maintaining it. But they want you to do it 3 times a year, and it's a 3-year commitment. So it was overwhelming. We ended up having the sign taken down because we just couldn't keep up with it. And so a sign would only work if a person was going to do it repetitively year after year, which maybe they would just be a one-time thing for one family, and then next year a different family doing it. Maybe it's not so much about recognition, but just make money for the Ag Society or the community group, or yeah, I don't know. Member Greer?
Share a lot of adamant for the multiple topics here. For ducks, I don't know if there is a compromise or some support or a letter of support rather than financial funds. For pheasants, feel like if it is a hunting exercise, that should be what is the main funding of that. In terms of the last topic, the pitch-in, I'm curious what the county does aside from ASB. I'm like tying those to agriculture. I'm trying to understand that versus county doing that outside of ASB.
That's a really good comment. Yeah. So this kind of started, maybe George can jump in here. Our county staff have done a pitch in kind of a once a year kind of thing. And this year, I believe they were in Gleason. Is that right?
Yeah, George here. So the Hamlet crew generally does go through the hamlets and pick up garbage. And, we do have staff going around the ditches and county highways picking up, old couches and things of that nature. So this might be a way to help alleviate some of that pressure off staff as well while engaging our local community groups, which, might be good.
Member Link?
To Member Greer's question, and I may not have been reading it properly, but on page 10, question to administration, is option C, like would that not involve monetary contributions, but more just, it looks like ducks would be 100%, like they reference a 50-50 split, and then on the top of page 11, they reference like a 20-80 split, which obviously both have financial considerations. Does option C provide us the ability to acknowledge, but not like more in line with what you're saying, perhaps like support the project in principle, particularly given the voluntary nature of it, but minimize the financial impact?
Yeah, George here through the chair. DUC is very open to a relationship and kind of whatever that would fit in our scope and our mandate, they would be open towards participating in any capacity, is my understanding. Yeah.
So yeah, I could see us advertising in our county connector or on some social media or things like that. I really would rather see us push rather than like just the messaging side of things. So what does the board feel? Do we just want to accept for information, or do you want to ask administration to look further into the pitch-in program? Do we want to implement something?
Could we potentially address each proposal individually?
Good idea.
I'll move that Wheatland County approve essentially option C on page 10 for the Ducks Unlimited program, where Ducks Unlimited would be the sole entity and we would act as a silent partner and not act in any capacity other than acknowledging the pilot's delivery within the municipal boundaries and provide awareness support through social media and our website. Or communication, sure, that would be great. Yeah, and then that keeps it open to the connector and other methods. And the ASB may have other, like more one-on-one ways of just, if there's pamphlets or you're working on an environmental farm plan already and you can discuss this option, things like that.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? I'll call a question. Member Bigger? She's not on the phone right now? Oh, okay. Member Reichert?
In favor.
Member Link?
In favor.
Member Greer?
In favor?
Member Kester,
In favor?
Member Larson,
In favor.
Member Wilson,
In favor.
and Member DeSmet.
In favor.
And I'm in favor, so that's carried. Thank you. Do you want to move on to the ACA?
First, I'll move that we accept the report as information, which is the first one we should have done. And then I would suggest that we don't do anything with the pheasant program.
Okay.
And then the third one, the pitch-in program is a great program, but I'm wondering if that's not something that we could do county-wide as opposed to through the ASB. Just seems to make more sense to me. I'm struggling again with it to see a direct link to agriculture. It's a good idea. I'm struggling to link it to agriculture.
Sounds good. Let's vote on your first motion. Yeah, so we have a motion to accept for information. Member Eichert,
In favor?
Member Link,
In favor?
Member Greer,
In favor?
Member Kester,
In favor?
Member Larson,
In favor.
Member Wilson,
In favor.
Member DeSmet,
In favor.
and I'm in favor. That's carried. Then Member Link.
I just have a comment just about the tie for the ditches program to agriculture. I think where it is an important conversation at this table is the fact that it would prevent trespass farming, which, like, I understand the nuance around that, but it does have agricultural impacts. And in a significant drought, especially when you've had serial years of substantial, like, reduced moisture, it could impact agricultural producers. Now, obviously, administration spoke to it's not going to be carte blanche, it would be targeted, it would be voluntary. But I think that's why it is important that even if I understand the rationale for booting it back to council, but I think it's important that council, especially for our members at large, that we have, and active agricultural producers at the ASB and our ASB team, that we have those insights for council to consider if this goes back to council.
So, sorry, Member Link. I think Member Larson was talking about the pitch-in program, which is the garbage cleanup, not the trespass. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I guess the one aspect of this pitch-in program that would be relevant here is the environmental part of it, which we are ag and environment. So department, I guess, we are an ag service board, but the department is, yeah. So if people feel it's more of a council decision, then we can certainly kick it that way. Or Member Greer.
Just, we're bouncing around between a few topics. Can we go to the second? I think there's 4 total. Can we go to the second one and look at recommendations? Which was the first pheasant, the ACA.
Yeah. So that one is looking for $2,000 to $5,000 towards pheasant release.
Yeah, so I think Member Larson had said that, I don't know how we would word that, but that we would accept it for information but not proceed with investment.
Yeah, so I think from process, if we've accepted the entire report and if we don't intend to act on this one, we just wouldn't need a motion for it unless somebody has an action. And I guess I would just ask administration to expand on the value that you might anticipate seeing. Obviously, we have the report, and I do see the parallel that you've drawn between a habitat that's appropriate. And it goes back to the conversation we were having with the biologist. A strong pheasant habitat is a strong biodiverse habitat. And we did talk about there is, unless you're willing to enter into a long-term agreement that can have significant impacts on your land, there's limited compensation or incentivization to maintain native prairie grassland and this type of environment. My challenge with this one is it's so targeted and not very broad, but I do like it would be a mechanism to incentivize maintaining native prairie grassland. But I do struggle they're introduced and flourishing.
This one is a tricky one for me too, because we would be helping pay for a landowner in raising pheasants. We'd be actually supporting a private business. It's very, yeah. For me, I wouldn't want to entertain anything on this one, but if the board feels differently, it's fine. Do you want to talk about the Save the Ditches then? Is there anything there that? Sorry, member, listen.
Yeah, I think we've accepted his information. If we can move on, if there's no actions with it.
Member Link?
Just a question to administration. Have we had landowners who have expressed an interest in this type of arrangement?
Like planting in the ditches, native grasses?
No, like potentially designating under a Save the Ditches type concept.
It's a new program, so it hasn't been well advertised for very long. So no, not to my knowledge.
So yeah, I would say that again, we can promote this, the idea of it, and if we found that landowners were expressing interest, we could, explore further how we could, accommodate that or whatever. But in the meantime, I think just providing the information is good enough. And so where are we with the pitch-in program? Any interest?
You can bring it back to council, I'd say.
I think it's a council issue.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's move on our agenda. Let's talk about the ASB summer tour information. George, maybe if you just have a summary of where we're at.
Sure.
Dan?
Sure.
Yeah.
George here from administration. So you don't want me to read the whole background? Nope. Okay. So I have some information here regarding the tour timelines and drop dead dates. So a couple of dates in July seem to work the best for 2026. It's nice to be able to be before or after another major event, such as the Strathmore Stampede or Calgary Stampede. I think there's a lot of potential to having people come down and participate in that. Some of the budgeting here, a lot of this was dug up from previous reports and talking to other ASBs who had done the tour. I'm sure some of you had been previously on the one, so I remember the board had talked about the Newell tour quite a bit. I also talked to the fieldmen up in Strathcona. And so there's just such a wide variety of how these tours can work, right? It could be kind of anything you want to build, but generally what we're had expensed here was based on a 3-day tour. So that could, my transportation, I put on 2 days of touring around on the assumption that 3 full days touring on a bus might be a lot for just Wheatland County. And perhaps, maybe the 3rd day could be more of like a conference or something that could be open up to everybody. So these are just some very like baseline estimates, very high level. One particular part I would like to touch base on is the tour coordinator. So that is a very common theme for other ASBs to hire a tour coordinator to kind of be the point person for these projects. It is some of the fieldmen I've talked to have straight up said that if their staff were told to do another ASB summer tour, that they would probably quit on the spot. So it is a huge job, and I think that component of the tour coordinator is a crucial portion of it. It's just nice to have that one point person, and then especially if you could get some local person who is really tuned into the local producers and potential culture and all the other things that make Wheatland great to live and visit and these kind of things. So there's some things about miscellaneous expenses for promotions, door prizes, these kind of things, and then I talk about if we had 350 participants at $500 a ticket, then we could generate approximately $175,000. I'm thinking we could probably get another 25,000 in sponsorship, you know, for food and snacks and these kind of things. And then I've listed the accommodations and a few venues in here. So we are very limited by venues in this area. The Strathmore Civic Center is kind of the biggest and probably best facility in the local area for, you know, 400 people. And then we just talked about some potential tour sites. You guys have, the board has seen kind of some of this stuff before in the past. And, you know, I think we all have a fairly good idea of what's out there. And, you know, there's lots of great opportunities for something like this. And, you know, if this is something the board wanted to proceed with, then you know, my recommendation is to try and give staff as much time as possible to make it a resounding success. If we're going to do it, then we're going to want to do it correctly, right? So that's all I have in a nutshell.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Very good. And so what is the board's, yeah, member Link?
So I love this idea. I really do. And I do hope that we do this in the future. One thought that I had is that we have the Strathmore District Agricultural Society working on the Western Events and Cultural Center. And with that being located in Wheatland County and potentially being, I think, a really good venue for an event like this and really being able to showcase Wheatland County, my preference would be to defer this consideration until we have, even until we have a timeline of completion of the WEC, and then we could maybe just have a conversation with the Egg Society and see if that, you know, if it could accommodate an event like this, and then reconsider once we would have a timeline that where we could accommodate it within the actual county. Those are my thoughts. But I love the idea. Absolutely love the idea of showcasing our producers and everything happening in the county.
Member Wilson?
Yeah, I agree with Amber on the aspect of showing off our county. Strathcona did a wonderful job, and I think we could bring it back to southern Alberta and bring it back a reoccurring event for all ASBs across the province. I don't know if we want to wait the entire time, because I don't know how long that will take, the Western Event Center. And government's slow. Well, societies are no different. Things can change pretty quick, and the 3-year timeline could turn into 5, could turn into 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pretty quick for something like that. So I just don't know if we want to. There are other venues. Yeah, it would be a great opening ceremony for them to have this egg conference, provincial egg conference there. But again, I mean, you have that civic center, you have the hockey rink, you have the egg pavilion, you have the Egg Society still right there too. I mean, I don't think it's a make it or break it kind of thing. So I just don't. I'd be hesitant to wait on the Egg Society.
So I had I had the same thoughts as Member Link that Strathmore would benefit from this more than we would, just in terms of accommodating and venues and things like that. Yeah, I love the idea too. I think it would be great to get have a really great ASB conference here. And I love thank you for listing all of the different venues that could potentially be tour sites, because that really just highlights all of the different locations that we have in the county, and just such a variety of different things from Indigenous through the Siksika to organic farming to, just kind of all Rosebud Theater. You know, we just have so much to offer here. So it's great to see it down on a list, and we can add to that as we go. I guess I'm still thinking that we should wait on that event center, but it would be curious to know just, I know they really couldn't say how far they are from building. It all depends on fundraising and all kinds of other things, but I don't know. Also, I note that it would cost us about $100,000 just based on the loose budget of expenses versus revenue, and it makes me a little anxious thinking about that. But Member Link?
Could I propose that we consider revisiting this? I'm mindful of the drop dead date of December. The Strathmore District Ag Society has a aggressive timeline for a goal. Now, they may not realize that goal, but we may have a better sense of where they are at in terms of their funding for the capital project by December, and then we could revisit it then. They're also, obviously, they're focusing on corporate sponsorship as well, and perhaps if the event was at a facility that had strong corporate sponsorship, there might be an appetite for that same corporate sponsor to support an event like this, so it wouldn't cost the taxpayers money, but we could still put on a first-class event for our colleagues across the province and really showcase this region. I could see some incentive for a strong corporate sponsor to want to be a part of that. So it could mitigate a couple of the concerns. And I'm happy to reach out to the Ag Society sort of on a regular basis, or even if admin want to reach out before our December meeting and just get an update. I'd rather we not decide today, and in December, if it's looking promising, or we have an update, maybe we look at 2027 if it's more realistic, but we're not, saying no or putting it off indefinitely.
Thanks. George, and then Ryan.
Administration did host some meetings with the Strathmore District Ag Society, and they are very forthcoming in their cooperation for having an event like this proceed. And regarding your comment about the costing, we did put that $25,000 sponsorship pretty low. I do think that there's opportunity perhaps with, if there was like a 2-day show and the third day is like a trade show conference or something, there may be other ways to garner sponsorship than from the traditional 2 or 3-day tour. That's something that the board or council could come back to look at a variable plan for that. But I just wanted to highlight that the Strathmore Ag Society was very collaborative on a project like this. So. Oh, one more thing, pardon me. I did reach out to the Provincial Ag Service Board group as well. And I said, would there be any opportunity for provincial sponsorship? And while the official answer is, we don't know, I suspect that if the board came forward with a funding request letter, that they would look at it. So we would be the first tour after COVID, right? So it's very difficult, I think, to get momentum of a tour like this going every second, third year. And for Wheatland to take the first step, I think is within our nature. We often seem to be on the forefront of projects, and that's one of the things I love about working here. So, thanks.
I like the idea of a compromise. I lean towards Member Wilson's warning about a potential long-term delay. But I like the thought that we can still figure this out this year, with the warning from admin on giving as much time as possible. Maybe we try to provide that guidance in September if there's an update from Strathmore Ag, and if not, then December. And then one other potential opportunity is maybe there's some collaboration there with the town of Strathmore, if it does go that route, given which direction we decide to go come Q4.
Okay, oh, go ahead.
I'm sort of, do we have any feeling, because we can't be the only ASB group that's figuring out that we need to get these things back on the road again. So I don't know, how do they work this out, that if multiple groups go say, I'm thinking 26 would probably be an easier date to get to than 27 or 28, because everybody's going to be reticent about being the first one back on doing this again, right? So I think my personal opinion would be we start pushing to go for 2026. It doesn't matter how we do this, the town of Strathmore is going to be a main massive beneficiary of this. Like they have the hotels, they have, like, it's not, so whether or not it's at the Ag Society grounds, which I can see very well that we could do everything at the Ag Society grounds. The difference between that and Strathcona is a hamlet, and the town is another municipality. So my personal opinion would be to start looking at that, pushing forward and seeing if this is attainable. We could very well see that by December that drop dead date is we can't do this isn't going to work. Or we could have really good intel that the Ag Society is going to get their building built, and then we can say, okay, well, we're going to try for 2027. But my personal opinion would be, I think we've waited long enough. It's been a long time since ag shows, and we should give it a shot.
George, can you comment on other ag service boards potentially stepping up?
Yes, so I did.
Competition, or?
Yes, so I did reach out to the provincial group to see if anybody had expressed any interest in a tour for 26, and it was a resounding no. Nobody has brought this forward, at least not to their knowledge. I can dig in a little bit more to make sure, but I am pretty sure nobody at this point in time is doing the ASB summer tours. It had always been a voluntary tour as well, right? So it was not like it was mandated through the ASB Act or something.
Okay, well, that's good to know. But so let's.
I just have another question
sorry, go ahead.
for admin. So no matter what we decide here, you are recommending that we get a coordinator, which is nice. I think we talked about it in previous years as well, to get a coordinator. What would the timeline that you'd want to be starting to look at prior to, whether it be 2026 or 2027 or 2028, you'd want them within the year? So you would have to be, if it's 2026, you'd want to hire one by fourth quarter this year.
Yeah, I would say a minimum year lead time would be very helpful. I suppose you could do less, but I just would be afraid that the quality of the final product would be diminished if we leave things to the last minute.
Budget-wise, you'd be looking?
Budget-wise, I think we would have to have something from council in December, right? So a large, we'll need deposits for buses, we'll need deposits for big food orders and things like that. Blocking off hotel rooms. It's going to be a really mixed match thing in Strathmore. A lot of these hotels only have 40 or 60 rooms, right? So there's going to be a lot of things that we'll need to figure out right now, and there's going to be a lot of things that we don't know about right now that we will have to figure out.
Yeah, and I think another blocking off parking, camping spots, because I know Glenn's on the line, and he said there was one out in the middle of nowhere, and everyone camped. Strathcona, some of us camped, but it was on a parking lot. I feel if you have the ag grounds, which that's why I'm also hesitant busing from where people are staying out to the country to this. I know it's only 3 miles, but it's still 3 miles. And if you can have people camping at the venue, it's always way more handy. So that being said, I think you could look at the Ag Society and saying, let's block off more than just hotel rooms. But there are names. I know Janet Canters, she did the Grazing and Forage Conference, the coordinator for Grazing Forage Conference in Edmonton, and she lives in Standard. So she's done it multiple times, and she's usually pretty close on budget too for making money, like not losing money don't usually make money, but you don't lose money either.
So then this Ag Service Board meets in September and then January. So if we had more information in September, or would we be looking in January?
I think we should probably shoot for September, at least for an interim update. And
Okay.
Could we
The other
invite Ryan here?
yeah, whether it's worth his time or not, I mean, he's going to have a better sense, I would say, over the next few months about like some substantial support that they're pursuing. But a lot of these things are outside your control when you get commitment as well. So to the point around camping, I think we could explore camping at the Western Events site as well, but it might not be serviced like it would be in town. So depending on the timeline with that, but it's a consideration. The other thing, I'm assuming staff have December as well for budgetary consideration by council as well.
Mm-hmm.
There is a possibility that council could consider sort of backstop funding as a placeholder so that it's at least in the budget, with the goal to either do break-even budgeting on the event itself or to get commitments from either increased corporate sponsorship. The idea of a trade show, that's a neat idea. Maybe there's even a partnership with Strathmore and Strathmore Wheatland Chamber of Commerce or something to, you know, build out that event a bit more. There's things that we can explore, but I'd like to minimize the cost to Wheatland County ratepayers, recognizing that a balancing consideration is there could be financial benefit to a number of our agricultural producers or value add or ag tourism, things like that. But just being cognizant of that. I think we should shoot for an update in September. And
Do we want harder budget numbers coming back to ASB for September?
yeah, I think that would be beneficial.
And not just on the event itself, but staffing costs, I would say, would be a good number to have, just so the council knows where the money's going on the staff end.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you've looked at the cost of coordinators or anything like that, so something like that would be handy to have.
Yeah. Okay. So administration can continue to fine tune just at a high level, but we'll come back in September and revisit it, having some more information about whether the Strathmore Ag Society's Ag Event Center will be what their time frame is, and we'll make a decision from there. Go to council. I think they're already working kind of on this, but it's okay. We'll accept as information and direct staff.
I'll move that the board accept the 2026 summer tour report as information and direct administration to bring back further information to the September meeting so a decision can be made at that time.
Regarding budget and yeah, you can.
You know. Okay. All right.
We do have a ongoing motion from April 3rd that the board direct administration to review the ASB summer tour for 2026, providing timelines, drop dead dates for when a proposal would be required, and budgeting, which wasn't marked like as complete with this report. So I don't know if there's anything
Different.
beyond that or more detailed. But it is an ongoing motion that we already have.
So we might be just okay just to accept as information. Existing resolution already in place. Are you okay with that, Member Larson?
I'm not sure I understand why we need to change what I said.
Just that there is a resolution, so then we would have two resolutions on our tracker with the same outcome.
Okay, whatever.
We're just moving to accept as information. Any other comments? I'll call the question. Member Eichert,
In favor.
Member Link,
In favor.
Member Greer,
In favor?
Member Kester,
In favor.
Member Larson,
In favor.
Member Wilson,
In favor.
Member DeSmet,
In favor.
and I'm in favor, so that's carried. Thank you very much, everyone. That's a great discussion. Moving on, are we okay just to power through here? Let's talk about draft project funding policy. Sorry, draft awards policy. Thank you. George, just a summary if you don't mind.
Sure. So we don't have an awards policy, and we've drafted one for review here. This is on the resolution tracker as well, and there is a terms of reference resolution as well that is outstanding, and we didn't start the terms of reference until the policy has been completed. So it is attached to this report, and I'm available for questions.
Sorry, I was just curious about the timing of the awards program, and I am just curious. So we often have a difficult time receiving nominations for these awards, and I wonder if it has to do with the time of year that we're looking for. So a December 31st deadline for award nominations. So I wondered if we would have more success by having a March. Because then Christmas is over, you're thinking more about summertime and environmental, just having stewardship type awards and farming type awards that maybe people would be more, be thinking about it more, less distracted by Christmas. And so if we had like a March 1st maybe, and then we would review in our April ASB meeting. If we had a vote on different options for each award, we could do that at April and then present in June or whenever it's convenient. Any comments or questions about that? George?
One thing that may simplify this, and you're absolutely right, the timing is not ideal, is maybe it just has the same timeline as the bursaries. So that would be the end of September? Yes, end of September. And then, maybe people have seen some stewardship ideas throughout the summer. And then in, September 30th, the kids are back in school. We got a little bit of time. The summer's still fresh in our mind. So, perhaps.
We're also in the middle of harvest.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Difficult one, timing.
Mm-hmm. What do other people think? Ryan?
Just for clarity, it's open for the entire year up to that date. So I feel like there's not really going to be a perfect time. I think each quarter is going to come with its own challenges. So from my perspective, I'm good to change it, but I think it will likely resolve in the same outcome if we don't look at other ways to advertise it or whatever the case may be. Just my perspective.
Member Lane?
Thank you. I appreciate all of the work that was done on the policy, and I think we have strengthened these awards. And I hate to bring this up right now when you've already done the work on the policy. I appreciate that we have included a Women in Agriculture Award. A couple of thoughts. I wouldn't mind seeing the BMO Farm Family Award just referenced within this policy as well, because this body does also consider nominations for that and submit that to the Calgary Stampede. I think it goes to the Calgary Stampede. And then as well, there's the Alberta Century Farm and Ranch Awards. I wouldn't mind that being referenced in this as well, just for awareness. And I believe our ASB department facilitates that as well. And then I'm going to float another idea. I would love the idea. I appreciate that we have these environmental focused awards, but I wouldn't mind an idea around a Master Farm Family Award or an Excellence in Farming or Excellence in Agriculture Multiple municipalities have those in addition to other types of awards and the provincial awards that are in place. I would like it to focus on things like innovation, community involvement, things like that, and not necessarily be specifically focused on the environmental stewardship side. We have even, and maybe open it up a little bit more broadly, some ASBs permit agritourism operations to apply. We have some strong innovation happening, and a lot of that innovation does have environmental benefits, but it's not necessarily the driving force, or sometimes it's not even what people, through conversations, a lot of our farmers, they aren't necessarily consciously focusing on the stewardship side of it, but what they're doing has those benefits. But when they see environmental stewardship award, it's not necessarily aligning with what they might see in terms of their operations. And I'm sorry, that is work, but I have probably 8 of them open on my computer that we could draw from. There's already, strong templates for applications and criteria for applicants and things like that. But just a broader, and I realized then we would have the 2. We would have the BMO and a local recognition, and maybe at times it's recognizing both, but doing it locally as well. Just for consideration for the board. Thank you.
Those are great suggestions. Yeah. Any other ideas, comments?
Maybe a question and a comment. Could that innovation award, outside of environmentalism, flow, like double as also flowing into the BMO? Because if I understood the BMO award correctly, it's us putting forward a name, but only one of those people is recognized at the end of the day, if I understood that?
They all are
They all get
recognized.
recognized,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that in mind, it's maybe not as much of a deal. And then the second part would be following up to your comment surrounding timing. If we're putting all those in, similar to Min's comment, we'd have to make sure that the timing will align to allow for that.
Maybe then in a policy that encompasses so many different things, you just wouldn't put the timing into the policy. That would just be award-specific information. Yeah. It's awesome. So maybe a motion to direct it. So thank you so much for the work that you did on this. It's a great start, and we needed to put something in place. So just to start with this and build on it is an excellent place to be. So maybe a motion to direct administration to add those different awards into this policy.
I could move that we direct administration to integrate the amendments as discussed into the awards policy for future ASB consideration.
Perfect, thank you. Any other discussion? I'll call the question. Member Eichert?
In favor.
Member Link?
In favor.
Member Greer?
In favor?
Member Kester?
In favor.
Member Larson?
In favor.
Member Wilson?
In favor.
Member DeSmit?
In favor.
And I'm in favor, so that's carried. Thank you.
I'll just give a summary here. So we don't have a producer funding policy as of yet. We do have terms and conditions that are included to all of our funding. So this is a higher level to just include everything. So we just want to be very transparent, disseminating funds for producer funding, and this should help with that. So it does align with our goals and visions, and it is attached to this report for your review.
Thank you, George. Any comments or questions? Member Link.
Just a comment, I appreciate the work, and I do appreciate having things like this summarized in a policy. It just makes it, documents it, and helps with continuity, and so I appreciate the work that was done on it. Thank you.
Other comments? Perhaps a motion then to accept the draft funding policy? Thank you. Member DeSmet has moved to accept the draft project funding policy and direct administration to present the policy to council for approval. I'll call the question. Member Eichert?
In favor.
Member Link?
In favor.
Member Greer?
In favor?
Member Kester?
In favor.
Member Larson?
In favor.
Member Wilson?
In favor.
Member DeSmet?
In favor.
And I'm in favor. That's carried. Thanks, everyone. Next on our agenda is the moisture update, which, thank goodness, is a little more positive this year than last.
George from administration here. So Wheatland County has experienced challenging conditions for producers regarding moisture levels in the past. Attached to this report are the agricultural moisture situation updates from May 30th to June 13th and June 18th crop report. Admin has been monitoring moisture levels and has included the latest condition statement below, which is from the RMA How to Declare an Agricultural Disaster document that had been included in the packages in the past. And I am available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Any questions for admin? A motion to accept for information. Member Eichert.
I'll move that the board accept the condition statement of tool and moisture update report, which is attached to this report as information.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I'll call the question. Member Eichert.
In favor.
Member Link.
In favor.
Member Greer.
In favor?
Member Kester.
In favor.
Member Larson.
In favor.
Member Wilson.
In favor.
Member DeSmet.
In favor.
And I'm in favor. That is carried. Thank you. Please. Chair's report, not much to report, just that our ASB meeting last time, we had that presentation from Linda Hunt. We had made a motion to provide a letter of support to the AGNO program, and we also provided a $2,000 donation towards the program. And that was very well received by both the Minister of Ag and Irrigation, sent us a letter stating his appreciation for our support. And AGNO also acknowledged our leadership in our donation through further requests for funding through other ASBs. So yeah, I was pretty proud of the fact that we are shown to be leaders in that. So that was great. We've also had lots of updates since our last meeting about our Shelter Belt and Eco Buffer tree planting project, which I think is just so amazing that though we had a budget of $40,000, we have spent about $12,500 and had approximately $60,000 in donations, which just makes that project that much better, just because yeah, it's just a wonderful thing, and I can't wait to see them grow and become a nice little buffer so that people don't see into our lovely administration, not the administration building, but the area behind. So I like that. Yeah, I'll just move my report as presented, and I'm here for any questions. No questions? I'll call the question. Member Eichert?
I approve.
Member Link?
In favor.
Member Greer?
In favor?
Member Kester?
In favor.
Member Larson?
In favor.
Member Wilson?
In favor.
Member DeSmet? And I'm in favor. That's carried. Moving on to the Manager of Ag, Fieldman report.
Hello, George here from administration again. So I have attached to this report a bunch of statistics from our updating from our last quarter report. So you can see total inquiries to date through the department has been around 185. Our ag plastics recycling program has kind of stand still when we're doing mowing and spraying operations, so that hasn't changed a whole bunch. There's a bunch of stats regarding the producer fundings. One thing I would really like to highlight is we finished our 4-H donations, so the Huzzar and standard shows have been completed. It is in the report here, but there's also a little handout with a couple of pictures there that picture's worth 1,000 words, and I apologize that it didn't make it into the correspondence. So I just wanted to highlight that fact right here in my report. You can see though that the 4-H sale was held on May 28th in Huzzar. Rockyford was held on June 5th, and there's some numbers there. We're just waiting back for our final allotment, but it does fit within our budget. And then there is the mowing rotation for your reference. I know that that had been included in the council report previously, but it's always good to get that information out there. And we are expecting another one-pass mower and tractor coming up soon. A couple upcoming events, well, past events now, but yeah, there was an upcoming event for the Ag Smart. So I just like to touch base on that. There is an outstanding resolution, so I have been in touch with them. We do have secured a spot for a tour, and so I will just send out an email in the future just saying to see the numbers for participation, and then we'll get those final details out to the board. But that is the save the date day, is the July 30th. There is the first day. So I am available for any questions. Thank you very much.
Any questions? I just have one question. If somebody wanted to find a map with the greater beats on it on our website, would that be available? Greater beats. Is there a map showing if in Division 1, what are the greater beats that are? Is there a map anywhere?
Sorry, there is a map. I'm not sure if it's available on the website, but we can look into that and let you know.
Be kind of a handy thing to know, I think, if people wanted to look to see which is theirs. Curiosity's sake. If there are no other questions, perhaps, oh, remember?
Sorry, I do have a question.
You do have a question, okay.
Yeah. I appreciate, and I agree, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I appreciate the support for the 4-H programs in the county. I have had an inquiry about just how we select which programs we support, and if there is a way to perhaps compile a list of all of the, particularly like the beef and like the livestock clubs in the county, so that we're ensuring that we're doing equitable support throughout the clubs that our Wheatland County youth participate in. And then there are other 4-H clubs as well that do contribute to agriculture in the county that maybe don't have the sale days like beef or sheep clubs might. So just maybe if administration could look into that for the next round of sales, so that we're making sure that we're sharing the support for youth throughout the county. Thank you.
George?
George here, through the chair. Just one comment is there has been concerns before regarding the 4-H and buying individual animals. And I think that the board has been discussed that in the past. So that could potentially be something that maybe we would like to bring forward again, if you would be interested in changing the structure of that. I guess one thing I'm suggesting is maybe instead of purchasing an individual animal, that perhaps the allotment for the donations just goes directly to the clubs. So just a thought. Thank you.
Maybe we should ask administration to bring a request for decision with some options for future 4-H sales or other ways of supporting 4-H or youth initiatives in the county. Anybody care to make a motion?
I would move that we direct administration to bring a report back regarding support for 4-H clubs in Wheatland County.
Member Kerr? Okay. Any comments on that, I guess, and I'll call the question. Member Eichert?
In favor?
Member Link,
In favor.
Member Greer,
In favor?
Member Kester,
In favor.
Member Larson,
In favor.
Member Wilson,
In favor.
Member DeSmit,
In favor.
and I'm in favor. That is carried, and we just need a couple of more motions to accept the Fieldman's report as information.
I just had a question prior to that.
Oh, sorry.
We mentioned the utilization for baiting gophers in some of the counties. I'm wondering about the success. We're getting lots of questions from producers. This seems to be a astronomically high year, and curious if, for producers' information, where can they find, are we doing any webinars or anything on that? Or where would they find that information, just so that I can share that back with some of the producers I've reached out?
George here from administration again. Yes, so I do have a pre-generated email that includes information. I did forward it to the board, but I think it was before your tenure. So I'll make sure to make a note to send that to you and potentially Member Wilson as well. We'll just resend it again. So just so you know, I get gopher calls every day. It's like multiple a day. Like 10 minutes before I came in here, I was talking to a ratepayer about gophers. It is just nonstop. And that strychnine being gone is such a huge component for people. Unfortunately, we do not have that available anymore, but we have been having great success with a product called ZP rodent oat bait. It's a zinc phosphide, and I will send you some information regarding all that, and mechanical traps as well. We've been utilizing as well. So it's a very difficult problem, and if you don't start baiting early in the year with these kind of products, the grass is so good right now. I mean, the gopher is going to choose to eat the grass over dry bait in a bait station. So the key to the county's success, or maintenance, I should say, regarding gopher control is we start early and we try and hit it hard. So more than one tool in that toolbox.
Important information. Thank you so much.
Just to follow up on that, the ASB, provincial ASB has had 5 different resolutions regarding strychnine since 2019, when it was first talked about being discontinued. And all of them have gone to the provincial and federal, like Ag Canada and PMRA, all of them, same response. Sorry for your luck. It just is discontinued, it's canceled. And so they would not ever reestablish something once it's canceled. There would have to be, somebody would have to show that the issues with using it don't exist anymore. And so it's not that it's not, you can't argue that it's needed. You have to argue that the reasons for it being canceled are no longer there. So there's just, I don't see it ever. Well, I shouldn't ever say ever, but it's just, we've been told no so many times that really there's no benefit to continually knocking on that door. But I would recommend people write to their MLA and MP more particularly maybe, and just to express it's becoming a disaster. It's going to be our next climate problem is going to be gophers. So anyways, I just wanted to let people know that the ASBs have actively tried to do something about this, but at all levels, it's been a closed door.
Understood. I think my question is more suited towards what do we have available now and how do we make sure that's in the producer's hands. So I appreciate that. Absolutely. George has that, and we'll send that around. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Any other questions or comments on the Fieldman report? That's a motion to accept as information.
I'll make the motion that the board accept the July 3rd, 2024 Agriculture Fieldman's report as information.
Thank you. I'll call the question. Member Eichert?
In favor.
Member Link?
In favor.
Member Greer?
In favor.
Member Kester?
In favor.
Member Larson?
In favor.
Member Wilson?
In favor.
Member DeSmit?
In favor.
And I'm in favor. That's carried. And then there's the resolution tracker there. Any questions to admin on that? If not, a motion
I'll
to,
make that motion to accept as information.
thank you, Member Reichert. I'll call the question. Member Reichert,
In favor?
Member Link,
In favor?
Member Greer,
In favor.
Kester,
In favor?
Member Larson,
In favor.
Member Wilson,
In favor.
Member Dismit,
In favor.
and I'm in favor. That is carried. Last thing, I believe, on our agenda is correspondence. And just to reiterate that there was a handout of some late coming correspondence, or it just didn't get through to this this administration. So it's from Ag for Life and has to do with investing in some education, I believe. Had a quick scan of it before the meeting, but. Member Link, oh, sorry, George, go ahead.
Sorry, I'll just speak to this real quick. So Ag for Life, Wheatland County has been participating in the classroom agriculture program pre-2015. I only know 2015 is because that's the year I started here and started doing it. I know we had done it for a few years previous to that. We've been hosting anywhere between 3 to 5 classroom presentations every year. Usually 1 or 2 are the Hutterite Colony schools. Lately, we've been migrating more towards Strathmore schools. It is a voluntary request-based thing, and the county and the ag department have always been really happy to support that. So I just wanted the board to know that we have been volunteering with this group for a long time.
Awesome. Do you also get out to Wheatland Crossing and what age, what grade would you be going to?
So the classroom ag program is predominantly aimed towards grade 4 students. So sometimes that can be a blended classroom, 3-4, 4-5 kind of thing. But when you go to a colony school, it's the whole classroom, right? So it's it'd be all of them.
But you do go to other like Carsland School, Crossing.
Yeah, and we get requests to go to Calgary a lot too. However, we have not we've not followed up with that request as of this time.
Okay.
Just a quick question. Golden Hill School District, Price of Redeemer, and other school districts, are they involved in that? Are they aware of the program so they can make the request?
Yeah, so Ag for Life will advertise their programming to the schools. So I do think a package goes out to the school districts every year. And so this Ag for Life had picked up the classroom ag program, which had been separate previously, but it's part of their suite now. So just wanted you to know.
Good information. Thank you.
Could we just, building on Member Greer's question, would you be able to just reach out and ensure that they are also sending that to the separate school division? Because we do have a lot of Wheatland County youth that attend schools within Christ the Redeemer, and at times they just get missed sometimes with programs. So thank you.
And also along that line,
Sorry, Member Eichert?
also along that line, I'm not sure, is there like a homeschooling association that could be reached out to?
That's a great idea. I'll send you a contact right now. Yeah, there's a large homeschool community in the region, and several do live in Wheatland County. So some of them would be addressed through different school boards, but there are also out of jurisdiction school boards that facilitate that, like the oversight of those programs. Good point.
Member Kester, did you have a question?
Yeah, you mentioned, George, being contacted by Calgary School, but we didn't go there. Why? I'm thinking, for me personally, I would drop just about anything to go to Calgary. Those are the people that in the large urban centers that are the most removed from agriculture, as compared to, say, the other extreme of Hutterite Colony. They live right in the middle of it, hour by second. I would think, for me, being a producer, I would be more inclined to have my producer dollars spent in the large urban centers, because that's where a lot of uninformed feedback can come from.
Yeah, so George from admin here. So we always just prioritize Wheatland County and other local areas. Just, it's a pretty big time commitment for staff. Generally, it's a full day for these presentations, traveling around and that kind of stuff. So, I'm very open to the idea of pushing that boundary. If that's what the board so chooses, then that is absolutely something we can work towards.
I agree with the comments that they're probably the what need it most, but I suspect Egg for Life, like, would we be able to refer those inquiries to Egg for Life, and do they have resources to go within the city or already established within the city?
George here through the chair. So I do believe they do have resources. There are other coordinators in the Calgary that were taking schools. It's just a matter of capacity. You may only have 3 coordinators for a city of 1.2 million, and then we have 1 here for the county, right? So proportionally, it's just not something we ever really considered before, but absolutely we'd be willing to make changes.
I know that there used to be the Aggie Days put through the Calgary Board of Education, and they would do some programs in the school, and then they'd go down to the Stampede grounds and they would have some presentations and stuff like that. I'm not sure if it's still ongoing, but I know that there was that opportunity for them as well. Yeah.
That's good information, just to know that there are some programs that are already functioning in the city to educate.
Right. I know Alberta beef producers used to go into the classrooms and stuff too. So.
Okay, that's good to know too. Yeah. Are there any other items that we want to follow up with in our correspondence? Did anybody notice anything that needed?
Yes, I do. On page, I think it's 110. My mouse there. I wasn't aware of this. Third paragraph of that letter. We think gophers are a problem with no strychnine. Phosphate's going to be a huge problem in this county if we can't have it anymore.
There have been a number of municipal councils that have sent letters regarding this private members bill. It might not be a bad idea for us to add our voice to the number of voices that are expressing serious concerns about this bill.
I'm just curious if it's, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
If it's comes off stronger if the council sends it. Or both.
So I just noted that there was a response from PMRA on page 114, just saying that private members' bills need to be considered like any other bill, and rest assured that Health Canada's Pest Management Regulatory Agency regulatory process remains science-based. We're aware of this bill, currently monitoring its progress through the House of Commons. Yeah, we could certainly write just in.
I don't think
Yeah,
any
there's a look of
Albertans rest
skeptic-
assured about anything our federal government's doing these days.
Okay. Fair enough. Then would somebody like to make a motion to send a letter?
Glenn, you brought it up. Why don't you?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we send a letter voicing our concerns about, for sure, prohibiting glyphosate. I'll just leave the motion as such, and then I'll speak differently after.
Member Kester, would you entertain an amendment to also request that Wheatland County Council also consider sending a letter?
I don't think I can make a motion that Wheatland Council send a letter. I think it's best wait till Wheatland Council meeting. I can say I recommend at ASB forward a request on to Wheatland County Council.
Yeah, that would be great. The language I had used was just for county council to consider sending a letter, and any kind of language. I realize we can't direct, but I do think council can rely on ASB's recommendations. Thank you.
But I think that'd be a separate motion, personally.
Okay, we'll do two motions then. So Member Kester has moved to that ASB send a letter to, are we sending it to Minister of Health and Minister of Ag and Agri-Food Canada? Is that correct?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Could we also send to MP Shields and also to the provincial ag minister? And if we could also just copy our MLAs.
Yes. Yeah, did you say Minister of Ag? Yep. 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 Okay. Any other?
CC all our
Yeah.
CC all our MLAs too.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? I'll call the question. Member Eichert?
In favor.
Member Link?
In favor.
Member Greer?
In favor.
Member Kester?
In favor.
Member Larson?
In favor.
Member Wilson?
In favor.
Member Desmet?
In favor.
I'm in favor. That's carried. And then was there?
Having made that motion and having it passed, I think this is a bigger problem than just glyphosate. It started gopher poison. Oh, some people are misinformed. I know glyphosate's been in the news 10 years now, easy. And it seems to be dying down, but there's always a straggler. But years ago, I can remember 2,4-D, especially, and it was linked to Agent Orange and the Vietnam War, how this is just a terrible cancer causing. And people were jumping on the bandwagon. They had no education in that regards to make a judgment call. They were just sentimental, like most demonstrators are. They're just there for the fun, I think. And I think we have to keep in mind and scrutinize. I don't know how we can get the message across, but just because you don't think you like it, you make a law and force it down everybody else's throat. I don't like the way this person did it. Put it in a bill without any backup. It's getting to sound a lot like California. I even seen a joke the other day on a railway tie. Piece of rail caution can cause cancer. Who's going to eat it like a railway tie or sleep with it? It's just plain stupid. But anyway, that's what concerns me the most is how lackadaisical and how easy it is to put a bill together without any strong backup. And we've seen it with gopher poison, and now I'd hate to see the same fight start up with glyphosate. It'll be ruinous for this county. And I guess to finish off the last motion, I'll make a motion that we recommend or send our information off to council, Wheatland County Council, if they would consider writing a letter also.
Thanks, Member Kester, and comment?
Okay, I do have a comment about the glyphosate. I think that we have to be more responsible as producers, as stewards of the land about our glyphosate. They are finding glyphosate in kids' cereals, and I think it is an issue. So I think that we have to be a little bit more proactive about what we are doing and maybe educate ourselves as well.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to request council to write a similar letter. Member Eichert,
In favor.
Member Link,
In favor.
Member Greer,
In favor.
Member Kester,
In favor.
Member Larson,
In favor.
Member Wilson,
In favor.
Member DeSmet,
In favor.
and I'm in favor. That is carried. All right, if there's nothing else under correspondence, a motion to accept for information.
So moved.
Thank you, Member Wilson. Any discussion? Call the question. Member Eichert,
In favor.
Member Link,
In favor.
Member Greer,
In favor.
Member Kester,
In favor.
Member Larson,
In favor.
Member Wilson,
Favor.
and Member DeSmet,
In favor.
and I'm in favor. That is carried, and that brings us to the end of our agenda. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll adjourn the meeting.